Welcome back to the LOW APM challenge, where we learn to work smarter and not harder in the most difficult, most competitive, most anxiety-inducing game in the entire world. A game that will eat you up, spit you out, make you feel like you're worthless, and then some. Actively discourage you from having friends because they may drop your FPS if they're added in-game. And also generally lowers your self-esteem to a point you find yourself watching these YouTube videos, feeling motivated to play, and then playing 3 games and immediately losing that motivation. Hopefully, here on episode 3 of the Protoss LOW APM challenge, we can rebuild that motivation yet again. And I know many people, they watch this series as more edutainment than to play themselves, and that's fine. Just enjoying the most competitive 1v1 game in the world is fine. But for those of you who are actually taking the bold step to play and survive and struggle through the ladder, the cheese fields and the Zergling run-bys and everything else, well, credit to you. I know some of you are making the effort, and I wish you the best of luck. Here, for the Protoss LOW APM challenge, we have made it to the Platinum League. Though, I will full disclosure, I lost a few games because for some reason, and this is the issue many of you run into, I think, is the ranking system just wasn't confident where I was, and it kind of pushed me through the leagues for some reason way quicker, despite the same amount of games. Maybe. Is it because I picked Protoss? I don't think so. Sometimes it just does that, and it takes some more time to even out. But we are still going to be focusing on Gold and Platinum. We've learned some basic build orders, and with Protoss, matchup-dependent builds. What you do with your first probe and your first pylon, whether or not you need to defend early or potentially expand. Those things we've explained, and we're going to continue explaining. We don't get rid of any of these points, but instead, we're going to be adding onto it. So, on top of matchup-specific builds, on top of what units actually counter what and when you need to worry about switching up your unit composition, on top of kind of shifting to the CIA build, the Charge Lot Immortal Archon, we're going to be looking at exactly when and why and what tech you attack with, instead of just necessarily maxing out. Late game army and control, that means things like Warp Prisms, High Templar, and advanced benchmarks. If you're doing a timing, or you're doing a gateway pressure, or something like that, how many probes do you want? How many gateways? Okay. Things like that are going to be the focus today. So, with that said, let us jump in to the LOW APM challenge. Later on, many of you asked important questions, like, isn't a LOW APM Protoss challenge just playing Protoss? How do onions grow their layers? A continued question. Are charge lots amazing? And so many more. Thank you for your questions, your likes, subscribes, and staying awake long enough to say something clever. I do appreciate it. This time around, our goal will be 80 actions per minute, which may sound high, but remember these are drawn from the below the average of that league via SC2 replay stats, which you should be using as well, and of course we'll be using throughout. So, without further ado, let's learn to work a little smarter and not harder, and hopefully I can make your day and your games a little bit better. Jimmy, I know we do it live. Yes, but do a transition screen. No. And from the Loopy clan to start off, we have Big Sam.
Lumen Street 1357 is chilling.
That's an interesting clan tag. Haven't seen that one in a while. I think I am technically the leader.
Is that all?
And I do want to make it clear.
Take my Bezos.
Since it's very likely they are at least somewhat aware of the stream, I don't mind people playing against me, as long as they're playing around their skill level. Like, we've had a few people... I know it's a little hypocritical, but hopefully you understand my reasons. But just playing, like, as a platinum player in bronze doesn't really fit the theme, I guess, as much. But I don't mind playing you guys in the gold platinum leagues, where I think many of you are. Especially the Zergs, like we see on the other side. Alright, so we're going to focus on nailing down those builds, which means a chrono boost after building that first gateway at the front. We had a whole wall-off geometry guide in the previous episode. I still will screw it up, especially on this map. Thank you, Becky. I'm not sure if that's bragging.
3 months. I don't even have this game installed.
Okay, very important. He does not have an expansion by 1 minute. We're just, remember, scouts and probes. Scouts and probes. He has a spawning pool with some gas. So I am going to build a cyber core and a second gateway and a zealot. You see he's expanding, but he has gas. This was the important point to me. I'm going to build a second pylon, but in my main, if he didn't have gas, I still would have taken my Nexus. But we're at the point, Protoss is a whole lot of planning. It's essentially scout twice, cut once. The scouting is less for changing your build significantly, and more exactly how you're placing your units and stuff like that. So we have some Zerglings. It's a little weird he doesn't show the rest, but I'm getting my expansion now because we saw he was expanding. I'm gonna get Warp Gate. That Zealot stays on hold position. Notice we made the wall in a nice spot. Where do I want to put my... I think the shield battery there is fine, because I'll still have space to wall. The Adept will stop any more shenanigans from happening. And I can move on with my humble life here as a Protoss. I'm going to leave this probe on the 2 key. I'm in the habit, against Zerg, higher levels as well, of just having a probe ready. Enough Zergs will try to end things quickly that I think it is usually worth it. In fact, I'm going to get another Adept out of here, so that way I can go scouting. Because he did have gas, remember. And that is the important point here. I'm still going to start with a Stargate. So a lot of you may have heard, possibly from me, there's a patch coming to StarCraft 2. Yes, a real-life, actual StarCraft 2 patch in 2022. And it changes very little for the low APM challenge. Void Rays are going to be a little more expensive and take some more time to build. That doesn't mean we're not going to start with them. Shield battery rushes are going to be less strong. DTs with their blink, a little less strong. Importantly for you Protoss out there, Queens will no longer be able to transfuse off a creep. That one is actually quite a buff in Protoss versus Zerg, as that was one of the big threats, were those Queen pushes. Alright. So, just to acknowledge the changes, I will not be doing as heavy Stargate plays, but I already wasn't really planning on doing that. So, I mean, nothing dramatic changes. Now I'm going to get a robotics facility in the main. We saw he had a lot of Zerglings. I'm going to get a sentry at the front. So this is he probably has 3 bases. Did I not build a Void Ray? I did still mean to build a Void Ray. That was a mistake. I will build a Void Ray after the Oracle here. The Oracle is a nice follow-up to the Void Ray, though I wouldn't necessarily build it if I didn't see all those Zerglings. It is a scouting tool, alright? Like an observer, the Oracle is like a better observer. Because you have the Revelation ability, which essentially means you can see what he's doing. Remember, scouts and probes. He has a third. I'm going to queue up Revelation and then get out. We're going to get an Observer out of the Robotics. I usually hotkey my Robotics and my Stargate on the same key because, much like Terran production, you can just tab through them. I'm going to go up to 6 gateways, which is a lot on 2 base, but he has 3, but not that many drones. So I'm going to put that Void Ray, Control 2, Shift A-click all the areas where there may very well be Overlords. We're going to shade some of the Adepts out to where I already have a camera location for the third. Mineral Walk the probe to, and then... So the reason you'll see players do this is because this way I don't mess up my wall. If you Mineral Walk the probe and send the shades, you technically at no point have lost the wall. So that is super key. And I'm already a little late on this, but a Twilight and a Forge. So we're going to Charge Lot, Immortal Archon. I usually like to put my Oracle on the 6 key. I know it's a little much, but it is kind of a unit that you don't really need to be... Just whenever you can, essentially, is when you use that Oracle. We'll get a couple shield batteries here. Oh, this is interesting. We're going to recall these Adepts into the main. We'll bring the Oracle back as well. It's a pretty crazy drop. Though Warping and Zealots should be enough. We're going to get Charge here as well. So important to note, you can't just press the recall key. Any spell, recall is very notable for this. Any spell will automatically choose the closest target. So what that means is that if you recall your army from your natural and try to go to your main, it might just recall to your natural if you do it wrong. So obviously, that's not ideal. So we try to avoid that. I'm going to patrol the Void Ray. We're going to get another cannon and battery. I don't want to get too crazy on this because I'm still focused on building probes and all that. Going to get some Immortals chrono boosted. Chrono boost everything. Templar Archives. And I have plenty of probes. We're getting more gateways here. I'm going to send a couple Adepts, shift-click to the Watchtower. I'm building that Templar Archives, putting 3 in gas. Let's get some cannons. You know what? Get a Robo here as well. 2 Robos is fine. Gonna Scouts and Probes, scouting with the Oracle, building probes. I'm gonna go deal with some creep. So the nice thing about the Oracle is it can use Revelation to also kill creep tumors, but of course you run the risk of spending too much time microing there. So you want to avoid that if possible. And then, of course, getting supply blocked is also not super great. We see now a lot of Zerglings. How many probes? 85 probes, which is, another way to put that is way too many. 80 probes is usually, like 85 is fine. But
no more minerals in the field.
Archon time. We're going to get +2. He has a lot of Zerglings there. So I'm going to be ready to cancel this. But having those Archons means I have the counter. So now it's going to be very important to have wall-offs and just a generally good setup. Because the one thing he can do is be very annoying with those Zerglings. we're gonna build a cannon and a battery. Usually you want the cannon in the mineral line to cover more area. And remember the 1-2 we were talking about?
It should have
We're
happened.
gonna be working on that.
Minerals is ended.
Shift clicking off a few units to the watchtower. Where's that oracle? Here we are. Zerglings can fight the Archons if they'd like. Shield battery overcharge is of course nice. And very helpful. If he just wants to build Zerglings, well... Did he burrow a ling? Very cute. I'm gonna slap some more gates in front too. Here's what we're gonna do. I got a warp prism, control 2. We're gonna send that out and shift warp on it.
You have exhausted all the minerals in the cluster.
So that way. But here's what I want to do with a warp prism as well. Build Archons with it. So this will bring him to this side. Worst case, did you know you can recall morphing Archons? Fun fact. Of course, if he has enough Zerglings, it doesn't work out. So this is one of those games where he has Zerglings. I need to get as close to maxed out. That was a bit of a mistake, to be honest. I'm gonna get some stasis, move the observers out, get more upgrades. I'm gonna get a fleet beacon and another Stargate, because carriers will still counter. Morpian some more zealots here. A little bit of micro to minimize the damage to the Archons. We need to get all of the Archons, is the number. Storm would also be good to have, as Storm can kill Zerglings very quickly. The stasis force fields. We can shield battery overcharge here.
Your unit under attack.
Looks like he does have enough for now. We can turn on the Oracle as well. More Archons.
It should have happened. The minerals is ended.
He is getting a lot done, and he has all the bases here. I'm going to be putting these Templar on a hotkey and working on actually getting Storm here.
For the glory of Protoss, no mercy to any.
We can cancel. He sniped the Templar,
You have exhausted all the minerals in the cluster.
which is quite an impressive move.
For the glory of Protoss, never give up.
Do we have shield battery overcharge? We do here.
Your unit made it under attack. Now defensive. We need defense our base. Or right, GG.
He's right. We need to defense our base. Or right, GG. Ah. Build up some more Templar. So in this scenario, it is quite bad. It's not good here. We are in Trouble Town.
Battlefield exhausted. Time to make expand and defensive.
But we can build some Templar. Eventually you run out of steam. But we give it a shot. It is looking very bad here. Storm was the choice. Colossi can be the choice, but they are vulnerable if he ever builds any other units. So.
And the simulator has run dry. Hard time have finally all you need get
A few more Archons. More Templar. We're gonna get this base set. Did you know you can use the warp prism as essentially a warp in location? Fun fact. I'm gonna have Templar safe in each base as well. So that way,
You made expand, now defensive.
ideally, we don't get outright overrun by just Zerglings. I need to have those Templar just chilling at this stage. Because he has given us the opportunity to actually win a fight, so. By only building Zerglings.
Have happened. Your minerals is ended.
Make sure we have those Templar.
You have exhausted all the minerals in the cluster.
We'll get some observers. We're gonna bring this observer with the army and the Templar as well. Overcharge for those batteries.
Begin defense. Your unit under attack. GG.
We need to attack now.
You have exhausted. Time to show
That
your
is too
opponent.
much.
Protoss never give up. Stop enemy attack.
He got the Templar archives. I lost the Templar. That's a big mistake.
Begin defense our base. Your unit under attack.
I will say, this guy does seem quite accomplished for a Platinum player. Give him some credit. And possibly remove his clan tag.
You made expand, now defensive.
Yeah, 3-3. The answer was Storm earlier,
Enemy attack.
but otherwise, there you go. Storm earlier is the choice, and securing that fourth base. I got a little fancy, and I got punished for it. Hey, at least we no longer have the issue of being overranked. Ooh.
Oh, good. Now
Why
I
storm
have
over
your
Colossi?
attention.
Because
Make
Colossi
6268
are
is
fragile.
chilling for 8
If it's
months.
just
W
Lings,
and TRGG.
and you're confirming it's just Lings, the thing is, Colossi are vulnerable too. It's one of the few units that gets countered by Ultralisks.
Oh, a follower. Is that all?
Eldream Shifter is chilling for 46 months. True love.
Sam had 88 actions per minute in the... Well, actually, wait a second. What was that? 12? 0 seconds defeat. Nice to see you, Sam. Maybe 1 or 2. Only going late. Yeah, 1 or 2 Colossi is okay. But I did avoid going Storm. Storm is very good. We're trying to avoid going for Colossi in general, as Colossi are just not that great against Zerg, because there's a lot of opportunity to just switch into another unit composition. Well, we're gifting to the people. We'll do some allowances on that one. Do Archons keep their kill count from the component High Templar? I'm 90% sure.
Wonder
Yes.
Gaming has gifted 2 subs
I'm not
to viewers.
100% sure on that one, though. Ah, yes, my friend. Ron.
The strongest will win.
A Terran player. He had a Protoss. I want to say he had a Protoss portrait, though. First pylon, gonna be touching the gas. The Archons end up with the kills for 3 units. I mean, yes and no. The reason I'm building it like this, and then the gate can be between the gas and the edge, is this is kind of like a semi-Reaper wall. I should have scouted off that gate. We're gonna go scouts and probes. The kill count is just for EPing reasons. Occasionally, it's useful because you're like, did I kill that medevac? And then you look at the stalker and you're like, it has 1 kill. Stuff like that. But otherwise, the kill count is mostly for looking dramatic reasons. We're going to get the Cyber Core first, and then we're going to go down for the expansion. 1 gas, 2 gases. Pretty sus. So he tried to wall it off. He was very close. 2 gases. I'm going to have the probe ready to come back in. I'm going to build a second pylon at the front where it touches the edge corners so I can wall off if it becomes needed, though I don't know what he's doing. It usually is better to just expand than it is to sit back and try to play defensive, because a Terran has better 1-base options. A Terran, like, between, like, tank and Liberator pushes, like Widow Mines, Beast, if you're not being aggressive as a Protoss, you're better off with just getting 2 bases up, because you can defend it with like a shield battery overcharge, stuff like that. I'm going to start with that robotics facility.
Alright, GG.
You built a Reaper. I don't know. I didn't expect it. We'll pull a few probes, pull them back. Get the Stalker involved. He's obviously struggling to micro them. I'm going to send the probe in before I decide if I need to wall off. He survives. And then here comes an SCV. I'm building another Stalker. He's got an expansion. He's going to let me in his whole base here. Factory on the way. Alright. So we can just build in the main.
Time to show your opponent who is boss here.
I mean, he's got a lot of gas, and there's a small chance that there's like a proxy factory or something. He might have something spicy, but the thing is, he expanded, so he just doesn't have the money to build that many units. I'm going to get a robotics bay as well. Though, I won't necessarily. It's just that's the build I'm going for to start either way. I'm going to get a sentry. The sentry I'm building now because I don't think I'm going to die. Yeah, I want it to build up energy. I think it's unlikely that I will die because he just doesn't have that many units. I'm going to build a shield battery here just in case. This covers part of the mineral line and the front. It's a bit of a dual purpose. A couple adepts. And how many probes? 40 probes. Let's get those gases. Around 40 probes. I'm going to be relying on this first observer, the second observer, can just go out to the front right now. But the first observer will tell me whether I can take a third. Remember, scouts and probes. And pylons. Pylons are pretty important. He's got a tech lab, he's got 2 tech labs, and where's the fusion core, my friend? Well, so here's the answer. I can go for a third. That's very much clear. All roads lead to battle cruisers. Doesn't really matter what he's building out of that. I'm just gonna go for 2 Stargates. He might be going Banshees. So here's the deal. Here's the defense. I have observers. I'm getting Stargates. I can go Phoenixes against Banshees or Ravens. And I can go... This is one of the scenarios, by the way, I was talking about. When do you counter and when do you just ignore him? If he's doing some sort of 1-1-1, like Widowmine drop, the specifics don't really matter. Like, it's not a big deal. But if he's going 2 starports and either Banshee or Battlecruiser, like any sort of super high-tech option, option 1 would just be trying to kill him. Option 2, well, 1, I don't think trying to kill him is really gonna do much right now. Option 2 is countering it. And I think here I'm better off trying to deal with it. Because I already got the Stargates. I can get cannons as well for detection, but I already have a robo, so I can build the observers. Also, the beauty of Phoenixes against Banshees is Banshees, they don't hit back. So he can't actually... He has Cloak here. And I'm not worrying about pulling the probes. I'm just essentially macroing up. We'll get... I hotkeyed in the observer. And, okay. Well, there you go. That seems a more par for the course here in the gold/platinum leagues. That is more what I expect to see. Which is, I tried this crazy build, and it completely failed. Just more for reference. We may have gone over, as I didn't expect... Nope, the game had just started, so... Why can't I find these dudes when I ladder? If you don't find these dudes when you ladder, it's because you are that dude. I'm sorry. You're not high enough up to look down on those dudes. Because a lot of people, like, that Reaper came in. And what I didn't do was stop building probes. Like, my Stalker was a little late. I didn't have a shield battery. But, even if it kills a couple probes, I almost guarantee you that I had more. And I had significantly more probes.
The Lolly Smasher is chilling for 37 months.
I've never seen... Is that a Reaper emote? Like, an Overwatch Reaper emote? Like, I forgot there are Overwatch emotes in this. Thank you, Lolly Smasher. I don't know. He's Terran. Frosty Mike. All right. Get the gas. Quite an early SCV scout. I'm just gonna send a probe to annoy him. This isn't necessarily for... Yeah, there you go. I'm still gonna go for the Cyber Core before I expand. It's just a nice, safe way of doing it. And it's pretty common nowadays in PvT at all levels. Alright, we'll look for the gas here. He has 1 gas. I'm going to send the probe down, just patrol around that expansion. Because he should be doing... Oh yeah, let's put 3 in gas here.
Your unit Under attack.
A 1-rack 6-span. I'm not going to pylon block because he can build buildings that fly, but okay. Alright, well, he's expanding, so I'm just gonna go hang out.
We made it. Time to celebrate victory.
Okay, Now this is particularly weak-willed Terrans we're seeing here. Okay. Let's see. Let's look at the Frosty Mike action cam. So this he's all right. He's building a Reaper. He's attacking the probe. He slaps down the expansion. Okay. All right. And fuck this shit. Mom called him for dinner or something. I don't... Alright. Frosty Mike coming in. That, even for, like, the Banshee game, I can see it. Like, that was literally his whole build, was my Banshees will surprise you. You won't believe how little damage these Banshees will do, but at the same time, like... He may have just rage quit off of building his expansion slightly off-center. It doesn't seem to take much. No, he's on a winning streak. He had won 3 games before that. He wasn't just leaving at the first sign of trouble, just for reference.
Now I have your
Thank you,
attention.
Shamestone. Glad you still enjoy.
Shamestone is chilling for 7 months. I'm glad you're glad I still enjoy.
If you want win,
I just ruined his vibe there. That's my bad. It's like, yeah, fucking Protoss. Okay, so, speaking of. First pylon with the power field touching the ramp here. And I'm going to build, it's going to be 2 gates at the front, and we're going to technically build the Adept wall, which is still, like, even at the pro level, players are pretty inconsistent with walling off, and by that I mean like 1 out of 6 games the Adepts will get in anyways. You can just look real pro by rallying this probe. And then rallying this probe. And then rallying the other probe for the second gate. You need to build the second gate before the cyber core, otherwise it completes after the cyber core, because gateways take longer to build. I'm just gonna patrol there. A lot of players will kind of forget they need to build a second gate and then just slap it down. Like, that's not how it's done. That's just inefficient. The idea is by the time the cyber core finishes, which I'm building now, so he has a faster, I have the faster cyber core. He does not have
for the glory of Protoss.
he does not have a second gas. I'm looking for his second pylon right now as I'm filling out my gases. He needs a second pylon. We all know how important that second pylon is. The fact that he doesn't have it, but he doesn't have a second gas. So either he screwed up his build, or there's another pylon somewhere, but I'm willing to come back in via mineral walk. I'm building 2 stalkers, and I'm going to get a pylon down the ramp. He's expanding. He's only building 1 unit here. Okay, well, so... and then he canceled it. Okay. Well, you know what? I'm... Alright. Since he didn't have a second gas, he can't go for, like, a proxy Stargate. Well, he can't easily or timely go for, like, a proxy Stargate or anything. So, I'm just building more Stalkers. I'm going to expand. He cancels that. I'm gonna put this probe. Just patrol it right here, so that way I can build a shield battery if I see adepts coming in. I'm just doing my due diligence here, looking around. We're gonna get the robotics facility. And a third gateway. This is kind of my... I don't know what you're doing, but I don't know that you don't know what you're doing. So, probe, slap down a pylon. I find, like, just one pylon. This is just standard. This is just standard macro in PvP. Having something out there. Probe comes in. He's now expanding. We're going to go up the ramp with the mineral walk. It's going to... There's a robo. It's a little late. So, we got DTs on the mind. Even though he didn't have that much gas, like, eventually. Gonna get 2 sentries. Chrono boost out an observer. I'm gonna get a shield battery in the main. I would have gotten a shield battery in the main quicker if I thought it was going to be like a proxy Stargate, but because he only had... You can almost always see when they take their gas, because Protoss can't have units out unless they hardwall. They can't have units out to block you, so... This will be all the Stalkers I make, unless I have further provocation here, by the way. Gonna get another Observer and queue up an Immortal. Like, Stalkers are good, but I'm not going for Blink. I'm just gonna hotkey that Observer in with the army. What are we at? 40 probes? Okay. Twilight and a Forge. And an Artosis pylon. Let's get a Tasteless pylon to back it up. So he has a shield battery, a bunch of Stalkers. He may have forgotten... No, run! Scouts and probes. I'm scouting. He has a Twilight. He has a Robo. Alright. I'm going to move one Observer, Shift E, and that'll put it in surveillance mode. The Twilight and the Forge are finishing. I'm going to get these 2 gases here. Plus 1 attack. Chrono boost. Charge. Chrono boost. Another Immortal. Chrono boost. And at 50 workers, we're going to get 3 more gates. This is the one matchup I'm going to tell you guys. Focus on your production. Protoss units are very good. Alright? And if your enemy has more than them, more than you, that's the word. It's bad. Alright, more wisdom if you subscribe. But it really is, like, the production cycles of warp gates can really get out of control. Especially at the higher levels. So we're going up to 6 gates. But, since they haven't kicked in yet, I can get my 3rd Nexus. I'm going to get it on the linear path as opposed to the triangle path, because this way it gives me a little more time and space to use things like Force Field. Did you see that? He has an Observer there. But I have an Observer scouting. I'm going to build a Zealot just to scout for his 3rd. He'll probably, knowing just players in general, and Protoss in particular, I bet he's taking a 3rd now several seconds later. But not too many. We're going to get a cannon. I was the one who was late. Well, that's going to give away my pylon. But we'll get the Triforce. We'll get pylon here and a pylon here. And the same thing. These are spotter pylons. 100 minerals for a guarantee that you won't miss an attack coming. I think that's a bargain. Plus 2 attack.
Mineral field exhausted. Time to make expand and defensive.
We're going to take some probes, use the camera location, move them over. A lot more from the main, move them over. We're going to queue up a few more. And remember, those Archons. I'm going to do one last check with a hallucinated Phoenix. So, as I get my third base up, this is when you become vulnerable. Even if he has a third, there's now enough on the map that it can be dangerous. So I'm going to be getting a cannon in each mineral line, just in case a DT rumbas or something. Got Chrono Boost. Well, this is great minds think most alikest. So wait, that hallucinated Phoenix. Oh, he's got a lot of stalkers. Let's get some more immortals. Archon time. More Archons. The goal is going to be about 75 probes, 10 gates. So let's...
Protoss never give up. Stop enemy attack.
He's got a few zealots. I can get some zealots as well. The observer is well placed. Actually, the one place I don't have vision is the main attack path. Like right down the center. So... we're gonna fix that now. Holding shift to warp in. One more immortal, and then I'm just gonna queue up a prism. I'm gonna take this base. Even though it seems more forward, it's because it is. That way I can defend essentially 2 bases on this lane. I'm going to shift-click off my zealots there. The intent is to take a base forward, so that way, by defending that front base, I'm essentially defending the base behind it. Let's see. He's got zealots over there.
Upgrade complete. Battle awaits us. For the glory of Protoss.
We got
No mercy
about to be 75. Let's check his upgrades. +0 upgrades, which is, 1 by 1, please. Not very many. We're going to get +3 attack, and then I'm probably, usually in PvP, I like filling in shields upgrades because I'm so Archon heavy. But the weapons are everything for winning the fights. You'll see a lot of attacks revolving around the weapons upgrades, not nearly as many revolving around like the follow-ups. So.
You made expand, now defensive.
Getting those charge lots, immortals, and with this, so first things first, Chrono Boost out. I'm gonna get a Stargate only to have the tech ready. We're gonna transfer probes. We got 76. I'm gonna get a Warp Prism on Control 2 into position. So now we focus on, I'm gonna get an observer as well. I'm gonna have some charge lots. These ones are my... I'll put them on Control 3. Just send him out over here where he's got his... He's got 1-1 done. Make sure I have the gas. Get another Nexus. Some more gates. Why not wall this base a little?
Show your opponent who is boss here.
A Dark Shrine. Yes, I'm filling in all the blanks. What I'm saying is, I'm going to try to take a fight, but I can't assume my army is going to be that much better than his. So we're relying on essentially just outmaneuvering him and getting a really good fight because of it.
You have exhausted
I don't have too many probes, so that's good. So we'll start moving across. Do I have an observer? I do. We're going to use that observer on the Immortals trick to just follow. It is tough. I sometimes screw that up, but I moved the observer off of the control group and just followed an Immortal, so at least it shouldn't just run into cannons. I'm going to bring these Zealots in. I'm just going to shift-click into the third, because I see this Stalker here, that he has this front base, and that's where I want to attack.
Your unit under attack.
Oh, he's taking this very serious. Let's see what he has in the main. He's very serious about that as well. You know what he probably isn't that serious about? The natural. A lot of players will abandon it, but not our hero here. Okay, so this is carriers. I'm gonna get very close with the Archons on all those Templar. We need to go carriers, though. Even while I'm doing all this,
For the glory of Protoss.
get the fleet beacon. Oh, we had disruptors. Honestly, I'm really liking the observer tip as well. It's working out.
Who is boss here?
I'm gonna make sure I get his, so that way I'm just gonna, because I think the big risk here is that he hits like DTs. I'm gonna warp in some more zealots, but I'm heading towards carriers because here's the situation: is he was just trying to turtle up, so I busted down the closest door. I'm just gonna force field this ramp. Archon, don't get stuck. Oh, he blinks over.
Mineral field exhausted. Time to make
We're gonna start building carriers and an immortal.
Have exhausted all the minerals in the cluster.
Yeah, this wasn't intended to win the game because he's building so many cannons is why we're going with the carriers. Take this base. Killed a lot of probes. I can build the cannons like he was as well. But we do need to build some sentries. A few more Archons. I obviously have the money, as you usually will.
And defensive.
More Archons.
For the glory of Protoss. No mercy to the enemy.
Chrono boost on the carriers. And even another cyber core. Yeah, he does have DTs, so important to note there. I think a lot of his strategy was like, I'll kill the observers as well, and then, well, since he has very limited anti-air, we killed a lot of the stalkers, right? Like, even 3 carriers. But if it's a full turtle, it's gotta be the... I know, it's not super fun, but like, that's how you win. It's like battle cruisers in TVT, especially at this level, it's the carriers. Like, that's how you get things done. More cannons, more carrier upgrades. I don't actually want that many zealots now, because that takes away from my carrier supply. Did I ever get a Dark Shrine? I did. Let's see what his upgrades are. 2-2. But as soon as I saw he was turtling on everything, that's when I start the carriers. That's why I built the Stargate before the attack, because if I saw it was unlikely to essentially win the game reliably, and if it's ground versus ground, like I said, if it's ground versus ground, there's no guarantee you'll have a bigger army in a better position. You can make moves to try to make that happen, but there's no guarantee. Because he can build the same units and put them in a better spot. So, I'm gonna chrono boost those upgrades. Chrono boost for everyone. Alright, let's see. We got some probes over here. I have a tendency to see there aren't enough probes at a base and just build more, which results in me having like 120 probes. Okay, I think the record's like 110, but like, you gotta think, at this stage of the game, do you need to be building probes? I've lost essentially 0 probes. There are no upgrades for the carrier on the fleet beacon. The upgrades just unlock on the cyber core for the carriers. Graviton catapult no longer exists for launching those interceptors.
No mercy to the enemy. Upgrade complete. Battle awaits us.
So pretty much I need to get observers as well. Observers are... Okay, I'm going to set the observer. We're going to remove it from the control group and just set it on the carriers. Because I think the carriers will provide a target to keep things busy. And once I get the cannons on this base set up... with a couple batteries sprinkled in there. Yeah. Chrono.
Protoss never give up. Stop enemy attack.
Okay, we'll show him.
Upgrade has been completed. Time to show new skills.
Yeah, there shouldn't be, like, he focused very heavily on the ground army afterwards, because obviously I had a big ground army, but that's the benefit of having map control. Like, if you take the initiative, you can usually tech switch as well. We did it! Under that 80. Typical carrier player.
Defatters
Yeah,
showing
carriers are not just the
performance.
low APM, they are the real tech choice. To break a stalemate, especially if you have a better economy. It is completely unreliable to keep making ground units, because one good disruptor hit or one bad fight, and that advantage is gone. Why did you have that probe on patrol at your main? Did I have a probe on patrol at the wall? I probably didn't notice after a while. But the reason you have it on patrol when you're blocking adepts is so that way it doesn't show up on the idle worker key. Also, added benefit, it will immediately bounce out. It will never have to like reposition to build the battery if it's already moving. It doesn't have to get the acceleration.
Now
I know that's a little fancy, but
Free play
I would
underscore
rather
Anonymous
lose
showing
one
for
probe
44 months.
of
Less than
mining
3.
the whole game than run the risk of any adepts killing half my mineral line. If you've ever watched Protoss, you'll know that even at the bleeding edge of 7k MMR, 2 adepts in the mineral line, because you got a little lazy or a little out of position, loses games. Like, still, to this day, more games than really it should. The best, I feel like it's not an incredible system we have, which is build a battery. And the reason you build a battery and not a pylon, by the way, is not because you need a shield battery. It's because a battery takes longer to build than a pylon, which means you don't have to keep canceling it in order to keep yourself from hardwalling off. And if for some reason you do need to hardwall off, it is better to have a battery. So, like if you're actually desperate and you think they might break through, a pylon builds quicker. But that's the reason why pros build batteries instead of pylons in that location, is just to have to babysit it less and lose less minerals to canceling it. It is a very micro-intensive exchange. But if you shut down the adepts and they commit to it, or they mess it up, they're very far behind in PvP. Because adepts are just not great fighting units. They're get up in your grill and then slip by while you thought they were in your grill. But they're actually not. They're in your mineral line. Alright. That was I know, I'm very profound, thank you. We're gonna get that pylon. We're gonna... I already showed you guys the wall off in the last episode. I'm gonna try to follow it as well. Alright. So, using the low APM Zerg challenge guide, which we haven't gotten to platinum yet as Zerg. So he's in I mean, there was the older one, but it's not like the build orders change significantly or anything like that. But when he builds any Vipers, you'll know. That's the only reason why. So I am now just going to patrol between the 3rd bases, and then I'm going to bring the probe down, and this one's going to patrol. The reason you use the patrol command, which you know every RTS uses as a staple, but has a lot of practical uses. So no RTS, especially modern, would leave out of development. The patrol command, a big key part of why I'm using it is because it keeps your probes from being on the idle worker key. I have the reflex. I see the idle worker key, I immediately want to get that worker to do something. Also beneficial on maps with watchtowers, if you have a worker at the watchtower, it actually doesn't show up on the idle worker key because it's busy watching the tower. It'd be nice, not that I would ever use Select All Army, it'd be nice if the Select All Army key did the same thing, but it does not. Select All Army will pull your units off the watchtower, so something to remember. So he doesn't have a 3rd, which is, as the kids say, pretty sus. As around 3 minutes is when you should be thinking about a 3rd. I'm going to get a shield battery at 3 minutes. Oh, well, I'm going to keep the shield battery. It's not that expensive. 100 minerals? You paid me... Oh, alright. I'm going to scout now with 1 adept. Build a single void ray. And in order to simulate the newest patch, I'm going to cancel the Void Ray, rebuild it, and kill one of my probes. So it cost me 50 minerals. Okay, we're not going to do that anymore, but... So, just in case you're wondering if you can do this build in the new patch. I'm actually going to sacrifice the Adept to Scout. He does have a Roach Warren. So, for those who don't know, in the new patch, Void Rays will be getting a nerf. They will cost 50 minerals more and 6 seconds more to build. So, Queens, though, will no longer be able to transfuse off of creep, which is kind of an even more huger deal. So, you're no longer nearly as threatened by Brenda and her knitting crew coming across the map. Not that it was a particularly popular Meta League strategy, but that is definitely a change-up to the higher level meta. But there are almost no changes in the upcoming patch. Hopefully, it's so... Just, I mean, I have a video on it. But a quick note is the intent is that it's a kind of a quality of life patch as opposed to a balance patch, and is hopefully a sign of things to come, which is having qualified people like tournament organizers and pro players decide how to adjust the game, usually very small amounts at a time, just to make it better for as many people as possible. Which means adjusting strategies that feel like they have very little counterplay, and making it harder, like things like Void Ray proxy rushes, stuff like that. Unfortunately, Protoss gets affected by a lot of that, but hopefully just the first round. Alright, we're at 50 probes. I'm going up to 8 gateways here. I'm getting that 3rd. We'll just patrol this. I got the Twilight and the Forge. It might look like I'm getting everything, and that's because once you stop building off the Stargate and you have a 3rd up and running, you start really having a lot of money. Stargate units aren't that expensive at all. They're more gas heavy, which means you have the minerals to build up your infrastructure.
No more minerals in the field.
Until you don't have any more minerals. Oh, I have already 2 observers. I'm gonna put those observers in key spots here. I'm gonna go in, just shift Q a revelation.
Your unit
We're gonna
under
get
attack.
3 on each gas.
You may expand.
Oh, well, could have seen that revelation a little quicker, I think. I don't think shield battery overcharge quite reaches this. Oh, I'm gonna press the R key on the shield battery to reshield the Nexus. So this is why we wanted to send the observers across the map when they came out, by the way.
Mafia 979 is chilling for
So
4
that way
months.
you can see
Use
if
your
he's
mind.
doing like a big roach attack. Pro tip. But with the Void Ray, we do have the tools. I did lose the Oracle because I was prioritizing making sure I had everything at home. Okay, looks like he's transitioned into even more roaches, which is quite a strat. Chrono boost. I'm gonna get some more cannons back here. Do we not have charge done? +1. We do need, I think, more Void Rays at this point. Shield battery overcharge onto the Nexus. I will warp in some Stalkers for their extra damage. I'm gonna get a gateway wall here, hopefully.
For the glory of Protoss, no mercy to the enemy. Upgrade complete.
And that's why we have that probe over there, remember? He's going for the Nexus again. We're gonna reshield it, but I don't have the overcharge, so I'm probably gonna lose it. Little bit of micro, and then Archon. AK, the micro was fallback to the shield batteries. I also built another Void Ray. Like, that was the counter at the start. I just didn't think he'd keep building only roaches. And because it's so heavy on roaches, we're not going to make this mistake of a few games ago. I'm getting Storm. Archons are good, but it's just that brick is too thick. The thick brick, if you would. So, gonna have a few Templar, get a couple sentries here. I'm going to have some gateways, both for production and a semi-wall. We're gonna chrono boost everything that has a bar that takes more than a second.
Exhausted. Time to make expand and defense.
Yeah. Let's get a cannon here. Get an adept on hold position. Triangle. Triforce here. 6 Templar is usually a good number. The rest go into Archons.
Your research is complete. You can
Storm
enjoy your
is
game.
done. And we have those sentries on a different key, so... I think it's very likely he'll think about my 4th now, if I've trained him well enough.
Protoss never give up.
Unfortunately, I have. But we can bring the Templar over. Looks like he's going to target the base, so I can cancel that. Where are my Templar? You guys are important. They like to feel important.
We need defense our base. Time to show your opponent who is boss here.
Warp in some more Templar.
No more minerals in the field. You made expand. Now defense.
More charge lots. I mean, we're working towards the CIA build here. And he did commit a lot, so should be a little easier here. I'm gonna get a couple more robos as well.
No more minerals in the field.
These charge lots I'm going to send out. We're moving this observer back to get better info more regularly. I now have 8 Templar. Actually, that means these should be Archons. We're at 80 probes because I've managed to keep the probes alive.
Your minerals is ended.
I'm gonna get a warp prism.
For the glory of Protoss, no mercy to the enemy.
I'm gonna shift click in some more of those zealots. Getting more immortals. Some pylons. These are mostly scouting pylons here. Unfortunately, we may have to consider that carrier move as well. If I have 81 probes, I should have enough to saturate this base. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Warp prism heading out. There's the main army.
Your unit under attack.
We've got some Templar. If we can fight the main army, that's ideal. Oh, it's just Hydras, which can be killed.
Time to show your opponent who is boss here.
Gonna warp in the charge lance. Bring the Templar with it. I'm going to take this opportunity to expand as much as possible
Time to make expand and defend.
because I now have them on defense. So that is the ideal scenario to do so. We're gonna get +1 shields and hint towards carriers. So 1-2, remember. In come the charge lots. We have full energy Templar here.
It should have happened. Your minerals is ended. For the glory of Protoss, no mercy to the enemy.
We hit this side.
All the minerals in the cluster. Mineral field is lost. Time to make
He killed some of those Templar. Let's just kill the base. Get the storms.
no more minerals in the field.
We can now get the cannons in the front.
Have happened. Your minerals
Some more
is ended.
Templar and Immortals. I'm not going to carriers because he still seems to be
Gas
committed.
field was depleted. Protoss need more gas.
On the Hydras.
Mineral field exhausted. Time to make expand and defense it.
We'll get the observers involved. But without lurkers, if he gets too many lurkers, we go... I'm actually going to start upgrading air weapons. If he gets too many lurkers, we start adding carriers. If he stays on Roach Hydra, we add more Templar. If he goes Viper and, like, Lurker, well, you kind of got to mix and match. But the ultimate late game is the carriers with the Templar underneath, obviously. So I actually, you know what? I will start a few.
And the simulator has run dry. Our times have come.
You don't have that many Stargates, so I'm gonna get
Upgrade complete.
a couple
By LOW
sentries.
APM.
His upgrades are 2-2. So same idea here. Step 1.
Now I have
Cauldron is chilling for 8
You
months.
defend our
Woot.
base. Alright, GG.
So we saw the lurkers, but it was a good flank, but I don't think he has the hive tech lurkers. So without them, it is hard to get
You have exhausted all the
much
minerals
done,
in the
especially if the lurkers aren't burrowed at the start of the fight. So
No more minerals
we'll
in the
bring
field.
the zealots in as well. Bringing the Templar with the army.
Time to show your opponent who is boss here.
And then push in here as he shows his army on the other side.
Finally, our unit gets an upgrade. Mineral
I
field
got all the Templar,
time to make expand.
most of them,
Defense.
but at what cost? Of course. So, do I have a Dark Shrine? Actually, something. The Dark Shrine is one of your main late game options. Looks like he's counterattacking.
Is that all?
Boku Ila is chilling for 3 months. I appreciate all the hard work you put into your content, Winter. Thank you.
I just don't enjoy. The Void Rays are here from the Roach defense. They just have kind of been left over. I'm actually gonna siege up one of those observers. But I'm now in between the bases, so... And still mining. There's his hive. He's building Zerglings. Slowlings. I'm not sure if he's out of money or if that was just the panic button there.
Glory of Protoss. No mercy
But-
to the enemy. Upgrade has been complete. You have exhausted all the minerals in the farm. Mineral field exhausted. Time to make more tactics, more win.
We overdid it! The virtue of being maxed out, as I've talked about on the other ones, is it isn't micro that pushes you over, it's actually macro. For all the people who think that their APM is actually lower, the reason your APM is lower is almost always because you're not building enough probes and pylons, not because you're not microing your blink stalkers well enough. It's because if you think about it, 4 Nexi building probes. They each can build 5 probes a minute. So that's 20 APM building probes. Alright? And then you have 10 gateways building zealots. They can do that twice a minute. Suddenly you're at 60 already. And then, of course, any micro at top. Over the top. But, I mean, the APM targets are... Well, they are targets, and I did go over. I could, of course, go for, like, 2 base timings, stuff like that. But I am trying to cut out as much as possible while still getting it all done. Which means... It does mean... controlling Templar. Templar are very important. Like, you can't get around that. You'll spend more time and more APM trying to counter Mass Roach Hydra without Templar than you will if you just build and control the Templar.
Winter Gaming has gifted 3 subs to viewers.
I think a lot of people, like, even pro players, even pro players will have difficulty with just building the right tech at the right time.
Oh, a follower.
It does feel like they lock themselves in, like, at risk of sending the best Terran in the world right now by finishes in IEM under the largest possible bus. Big Gabe, in his series against Reynor, was a pretty sharp example. I mean, he committed to Marine tank islands, right? But that means you don't really leave yourself the option of going Ghosts or Liberators and stuff like that. I think it's most clear. It's most clear when with Terran, because they have the obvious late game. But I think it's most important to avoid with Protoss. What I mean by that is, like, you definitely can win without Templar. You definitely can win without, like, Stargate. You can win with just Stalkers. Like, there's a lot of ways you will win. But that, in the long run, there are better ways. It's just because, and much to the dismay of the other races sometimes, Protoss units are so powerful that occasionally you'll just sneak that victory out of brute force, as they do require a strong response. But I want to point out, like, for example, against Mass Roach, you could go Void Race. And maybe it would work. But then you're kind of in an awkward spot. Like, what if they go Mass Hydra? And you switch to Colossi? Okay, you got Colossi now, which are the counters in Wings of Liberty against Hydras. But what if they go Roach Hydra Viper? And they actually know how to use their Vipers at all.
Now I have your attention.
Well,
Hotshot Ben is now
well then, you've been outclassed, essentially. Thank you, Ben. Because, well, part of the issue is the counter to Vipers is Templar with feedback. And also, the Vipers just shut down a lot of your army. As well as being, the Colossi being vulnerable to Lurkers. The point is, like, I guess specifically Templar, but also to an extent, Sentries. Are a unit that a lot of players will forget a lot of the time. Wait, did he not have... Oh, I'm not paying attention. I'm not in the game I'm currently in. I'm in whatever... I'm in all the games right now. So I scouted, and he didn't have any gas, or I saw him mining 1 gas. Maybe that was it. I don't know what my brain head did there, but... We'll figure that out. We'll go back, take a look. I'll probably lose... We're just going to box a few probes here. Citizen's arrest. Sir, respectfully, get the fuck out. Robotics facility. Probe. Hunter-killer probe. I will find you, and I will kill you. Son of a bitch! Fight me like a man! We will have our revenge. Alright, a couple more gates. He did build out of the reactor, and he did have... I just sent the Stalker across, though. Okay, don't get carried away. Kill 1 SCV if I'm lucky. This is probably a bad idea. We're leaving now. I'm going to the watchtower, and I'm never coming back home. Good job. Good job, Stalker. That's enough. You done good out there. Now, stop it. We're gonna get Robotics Bay. So, I actually saw, we haven't gone over the questions yet. I saw a question, and we're going to start dealing with this more and more about Widowmine Drop. So, Widowmine Drop is the worst, and I hate Widowmines, and they're terrible. But, at the same time, it can be prepared for. There's no easy, consistent way. Like, sometimes you're just going to misclick and lose all your probes. And I know that's not really the tip a lot of people are looking for, but essentially, just know the timing. A quick Whittle mine drop is around 4 minutes. That's like a pro gamer mine drop. So you can expect the mine drop probably 4:30 to 5 minutes if they're sending it straight out. So I would say 4:30. If you go Robo, then Warp Gate should be finished by then. Also, if you go Robo, you get observers, and then you scout. He doesn't have a mine drop because he has a tank. Okay. He's got 3 racks. So, do I take a third? Yes. Because here's what I do. The best defense is a good offense. We've seen more than enough to make decisions. He's got 3 racks. He's got tanks. I'm putting observers probably where I'd put overlords if I was Zerg. We have... I'm going to cut probes, though. This is actually an important timing. I'm going to be at 50 probes. 50 probes is more than you can use on 2 bases. So I still get the benefit of having a third. I'm going to build 3 more gates. I'm going to get extended thermal lance. I'm going to continue chrono boosting out this Colossus. I'm going to warp in at least 1 sentry. It's very important to have at least 1. Make sure I got 3 out of 3 in gas. So, when you see those tech labs finishing, you got about... probably about 2 minutes until the attack. So I saw that at, what, 5 minutes? I can expect an attack if he's on time with Medivac, Stim, Combat Shield. All that takes a little under 2 minutes to put together, but of course, usually, unless they're super sharp, they're not out on the map yet. So, the idea is I can get the third, have access to battery overcharge, I can get Colossi to defend, and I can get enough production to support them. We're starting with Stalkers, but after I have all my upgrades on the way, I'm going to get a Twilight. And I restarted probes, by the way, after I got all that. And go to 8 gateways. I know it's pretty technical, but the idea is 8 gateways, pumping Colossi, and with good map vision. And warping in relatively on cooldown. So, get some zealots now. Got a few too many. I can't just get Colossi now. Charge.
Research is ready. Time to show
Transfer a few probes over. Get the gas. And a Templar Archives here. We see a Marine, and we'll see if he gets close, so I'm not too worried about getting caught by surprise. Make sure I get some more pylons.
No more minerals in the field.
I'll get a gateway over here. This is becoming very popular since Zest started doing it. Like, is just ignoring the fact you can build warp prisms, because that takes micro, and just building gateways out on the map for the fast warp in at the super pylons. Zest is like, why would I need a robo? It seems like a lot of work. Which is, we're gonna miss him.
New subscriber detected.
LL_Maru_LL is chilling
All right,
for 62
Triforce.
months. Over 5 years wound.
I'm gonna have +2 attack. We'll slap that second forge on as well.
No more minerals in the field.
And since he's not attacking,
For the glory of Protoss, no mercy to the enemy. You research?
I think he tried to micro into the medevac there. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna get... Oh, there's his main army. I'm gonna warp all these in. And we're just gonna click through. He doesn't see where I am, so when he stims in here momentarily... I should be able to just And then we'll split a few units to this base.
Time to show your opponent who is boss here.
Oh, he doesn't have a third. But this is why we had the vision across the map. The Zealots were supposed to be the distraction, but I was already in position with a better army. So, that ends up being okay. I'll get the armor upgrade as we're very reliant on charge lots. The reason you get, just to reiterate, that armor upgrade much of the time, not like if you're very Archon heavy, or if you're switching to air, it can be shields. But the reason you get the armor is because Zealots have more HP than they have shields. So do Immortals. At the very least, the only two units that have more shields than HP are the Archon and the Dark Templar. And both those units are very vulnerable to EMP, which is why you're not really that worried about it at the higher levels, because EMP negates all your shield upgrades anyways, so that is why mass Archon isn't as much of a thing once players know how to use Ghosts.
Finally, our units get new upgrade.
+3 weapons. I'm gonna get a couple more robotics. Ship 5.
It should have happened.
Some more Zealots as well. I'm gonna go chill at the Watchtower. I have vision of all this as well. That Observer doing some work.
You have exhausted all the minerals in the cluster.
We're gonna play it safe. Get a couple cannons in the main for drops. Get a Stargate. Chrono Boost. Everything that has a bar that takes a while. How many probes? 79. That's a very good number. Gonna take those idle probes with control F1 to the next base. If I have one extra in gas, I count on Twitch chat to point it out, so that way I can laugh at them for thinking it matters. And from here, gonna get more gateways. Like this is, so I could just attack. Just to be clear, this is making sure if I want to be confident in a victory, instead of going from like an 80% chance of victory, this is going to 90%. As long as you're comfortable with launching the minimap. So, which reminds me about the patrolling the minimap strat that I have not been doing. The Patroller Lords. It doesn't matter if you don't have Overlords. Patroller Lords. So we'll have a couple Zealots doing that. So that way your eye is always drawn to the minimap. Even if you see nothing, it gets you in the habit. I actually really like this. I've started implementing this in my regular games as well. Essentially the Patroller Lord simulator. Just having a unit, usually a probe, but sometimes units just patrolling around the corners. And throw a few Immortals in. So the big risk are the good units, like Liberators. He's got +2/+2, so pretty strong. I do have +3 attack finishing. Did I get a Dark Shrine? Let's do that. I got a Stargate. And, alright, so let's get all those Cyber Core upgrades. Make sure, yep, bring some probes over here.
Battle awaits us.
And shift A click, step 1. Alright. So that should draw some attention.
All the minerals in the cluster.
We see it hasn't yet. Now it has.
Your units under attack. Mineral field exhausted. Time to make it fun.
And it drew a significant percentage of his units. The idea is it draws any units out of position, pretty much. And here, it did pretty well. Liberators are dangerous. So, we're going to find ourselves with an awkward lack of anti-air. That's when we fill in the Archons here. And the Immortals, as an entrenched Terran, is very scary. But these are the units that don't really care about your silly siege units. If the Liberator count was too high, I'd go for Tempest, or for I'd go for Tempest or Carriers. I mean, I'm gonna get a Fleet Beacon now, but that would be the follow-up. Like if he has 10 ranged Liberators, not 2 unranged Liberators. That's the difference. We will get some more Stalkers, as he is focused on that. And I think upon seeing the success, we'll add some more. Fill in with the Zealots. I did add those extra gateways as well.
Finally, our unit get new upgrade.
Finally. How do we know if they're ranged versus non-ranged? You can kind of tell by the way it is. Also, like, you can tell by how long the Liberator range is. Also, technically, they have an animation if they're ranged. If you're really not sure, it has a big... It turns the projectile like a bright blue. And I just learned this, and don't rely on this. The circle has more spikes. It goes from, like... Also, you can click on them like this. He doesn't have the range upgrade. The circle has, like... I think when it's sieging up, it has more... That's too much. You can click on them and see if the range has been upgraded, or you can, what am I saying? Essentially, in general, if there's over 6 Liberators, that's when Tempests and or Carriers become a thing.
And the simulator has run dry. Hard times have come.
Alright. So they don't have blank, but we're sending these in. I'm gonna move some of those idle probes. The part of the reason, well, blink DTs were nerfed because that gets even easier to pull off.
Upgrade has been completed. Time to
Run away!
your units under attack.
So we're going to use that advanced strategy of just going around again. Where he has all the Liberators sieged up in a different spot. This was actually kind of an awkward fight. I'm rebuilding Colossi now. That is the issue, is Terran armies are very strong on their own. If you don't get all the splash damage. Honestly, this is kind of... I'm kind of in that scenario as describing, which is just go Storm. Just get Storm. Like, I am actively avoiding getting Storm, and it's making my life way more difficult. Because obviously he has no ghosts. So... He has a huge army supply. Probably way larger than mine because I killed a lot of SCVs. Chrono boost. So now I just keep these Templar back until I can get Storm. That's the plan.
No more minerals in the field.
We do have the Tempests.
Upgrade complete. You may expand.
Those are ranged Liberators, by the way. But the Tempest should help to deal with them. Do we have Storm ready? Couple seconds. One more warp in.
Research is ready.
Sometimes it's kind of like the Vipers with Zerg. At some point, you're putting in more effort avoiding them as opposed to actually playing with them. And that was almost the case there. Like, it's better to learn to just use storms. Like, it's not your go-to in every scenario, but Protoss suffers. Like, your units, pound for pound, aren't that great. It's when they're by their powers combined, though, is when it really comes together. Like, a Stalker Zealot army, despite costing more than a Marine Marauder army, will lose with even upgrades most of the time. Like, even an army with, like, Colossi will lose if there are a few Vikings or Liberators in a good spot. But it's your... listen to the Terrans. It's those Spellcasters. We're going to count Disruptors and Spellcasters, I guess, but those are the ones.
The strongest will win.
No APM check. It was on the screen for, like... I mean... we were at 72 that last game. Comfortably in the margins. I wasn't sure. Oh, wait, he's Protoss. Let's get that one on the front. Also, it's in the chat. I finally, starting with the last one, I can go back in the descriptions, like, and start linking the account as well. I mean, if you're watching live, there's always a link to the replay right afterwards, because you're amazing vampires, or even worse, Europeans. I mean, there's a lot of overlap there, I think, but watching live, well, you get the extra benefits. But you can always go to the account via SC2 replay stats, and you can check out any particular replay. You might have to sift through, but you can sift through and sort by matchup as well. So if you have a particular matchup and you want to see me play it, well, there you go. Cannon rush. We're gonna go with my favorite response here. Which is ignoring it. So he's building 600 minerals of cannons right now. I need to make sure I have enough for a Stargate here. If I get one Stalker out, it makes it a lot easier, but it's not necessary. So essentially, I'm going to recall, is the plan. Yeah, not getting the Stalker out would really suck, but there we are. You kill the probe, you kill the problem. Alright, well, anyways. So, we've kind of stopped the bleeding. I was pretty committed to not defending my main, but well, here we are. Okay. So, yeah, well, there you go. That also works. I guess I've expanded then. He has another probe. I do have a shield battery. You sit down there, sir. So we just chrono boost. I guess I'm just doing an expansion build, is what I'm doing. So he spent 600 minerals on cannons, however much on pylons and probes. And now I have a second base. I know the second base isn't exactly where you usually take your second base, but like... Let's see if he just expanded.
Time to show your opponent who is boss here. For the glory of Protoss, no mercy to the enemy.
Well, he doesn't have anything in the mineral line, so... I just hold position my Void Ray to make sure it doesn't do anything particularly stupid. He has a shield battery. The dick. No, I can just hit that. That's convenient. Which means we can start... Well, 2 Void Rays are better than 1. As you can tell, he's not huge on the follow-up here. Three Void Rays are better than 2. We're just gonna target the cannons because... Yeah, well, so... The beauty of cannon rushing at this level is all you have to do is slow it down a little. And even this one, like, once he builds a 3rd cannon, this is no longer cost effective. Yes, I know it's weird to think of cannon rushes like that, but the 3rd cannon means you've already spent more than a Nexus. Like, a 3rd cannon on the low ground. So unless I'm, like, pulling probes to deal with it, he's already spent more than it cost me to build a Nexus. In that case. So, it is incredibly costly. If you watch those pro cannon rushers and the painful GM barcodes, they'll sometimes only have 1. Sometimes they'll cancel their only cannon to get cannons closer, because it's the idea of a cannon that's the real threat. They can let it finish if you commit. But... That's the key to defending a cannon rush is don't panic. Where do you put the first pylon if they random? I put it just like PvP. So I would play it like it's PvP because that is where you're most likely to be punished. Maybe on some maps you can put the pylon on the low ground, but I think you kind of random players. The thing is, most random players, especially below Masters, there's a 2 in 3 chance, if not higher, that they're random players, not players who play random. So there is a difference. And that difference is usually that random players want to pull one over on you and are just going to cheese their way because they know that their Protoss or whatever is 1,000 MMR less. So they're going to do that cheese. So just playing it safe and walling off like you're up against Protoss. It doesn't hurt too badly against Terran. It can be annoying against Zerg, but then you just scout off the pylon or the gate. So, but yeah, you defend the early shenanigans, and then you launch your way up the Platinum League. I thought I broke the APM limit on that one. I thought I had ruined it. No. Once again, it's not about micro. It's almost always macro that runs up the APM counter. Because even if you're target firing cannons and all that, it's really not that much compared to just pressing the probe button a bunch of times. Yeah. Well, we're still going, but I do want to take a quick breather. It is time It's comment time. We've got some premium comments. It's becoming my favorite part. Besides the Twitch chat comments, of course. The goal, I think, will be Platinum 1 today. We'll see. Probably aim for 5 or 6 more games. I'm trying to go around 3 hours with each one because I think that's the limit. Like, anything past that, and, like, are you really paying attention? Let's not lie to ourselves here. I'm barely paying. I find myself losing focus after, like, especially trying to focus directly for 3 hours with, like, commentary and all that. So, no, not Twitch chat. But a short break. Not from this, but from the games. To answer your questions from the last episode of the Low APM Challenge. Those of you who were not able to watch live, or maybe were, but still wanted your question in a more permanent form. So, let's just kick it off. The Pro Swagonist asks, isn't a Low APM Protoss challenge just playing Protoss? Enough thumbs up agree. It is, by nature of its mechanics, the lowest APM required. Partially because their lowest supply army unit besides observers is 2 supply. So not no, but I want to just add that caveat of it's literally designed to build less units because they're more powerful. More continued comments. Zerg Cerebert Wolf agreeing that knowing how onions grow their layers is very important. We discussed that previously. There's still not a consensus. I don't trust the people to give me such important information. Grippy TV says, how do I deal with Widow Mine drops? They're infuriating. Yes, and they often do way more damage to me than they should. Platinum toss. Alright, so first thing to know is the timing. It's about 4 to 5 minutes is the earliest. It isn't limited to that, because if they're particularly... The danger of Widow Mine drops is when you no longer are scared of them, right? So 4 to 5 minutes is the timing. The best players will be at 4 minutes. So I would say 4 to 5. Your warp gate will finish a little close to 4. Hopefully you're on top of it. The general rule is since you've already scouted the base, try to figure out if he's got reactored Marines. If you can get in the base and see if he's building a factory and all that, usually your first adept will be able to scout. They won't tell you if it's a Widow Mine drop, but a lot of the time you can tell if it's going to be other shenanigans. Like if you see a siege tank, or you see a factory on a reactor, it tells you a lot of info. So that first adept shade at the ramp is pretty helpful. 2, your general rule is if you're opening Robo, your second observer stays at home. You build 2 observers. The first thing you do is build a Robo after the Cybercore when possible. This doesn't mean you can kill the mines, but it gives you a little bit of a better shot. And since I'm telling you guys to open Robo, you can open Stargate, but are you confident you will lift or reveal those Widow Mines in time? Are you? Another general rule is if you're too late, it's better to just take it. Okay? Just sit there and take it. This is the worst case scenario. The Widow Mines got into your base, you didn't see it coming, you noticed they dropped, they're already burrowing, it's too late. It's very likely if you try to pull away, your probes will stack up and they'll do even more damage. So at some point, like once the Widow Mines are already burrowing, it's better to just sit there and take it, which will minimize damage more than if you try to micro. Yes, it sucks, but it is the best damage control you can do is none at that stage. You just gotta let it hit and hope you can recover from there. That's the worst case scenario, but it is, I see a lot of players will see it like right as it's firing. They'll panic, right click, and the probes just all stack up and there go 15 of them, right? So the answer is there's no direct counter. You pretty much just try to shut it down, you can't over-counter it either. Another big mistake people make is, like, building cannons early. And unless they're going for armory Widow Mines with the cloak, it's not worth it. You can't overreact to the mines because it's a relatively cheap version for Terran. So you want to make sure you deal with it with what you're already going to build, like a few stalkers, an observer, stuff like that. Are charge lots the best tier 1 unit in the game? 1, charge lots are not tier 1. They require at least another tier. We'll call them tier 1.5. Zealots are tier 1. And are Zealots the best? No. Are charge lots? We'll just argue they're tier 1. Are they the best? No. They're not very good. En masse, they're okay. But Marines are far better. Zerglings, it depends. But they are not. Charge lots are very good. The less, they are better, the worse both you and your opponent are. But their strength is how thick they are. They are very difficult. Literally, it's usually worse to micro them than not micro them. So they do have that advantage over a lot of the time Marines and Zerglings, but I wouldn't overestimate charge lots, especially against some of the units we're talking about, like Widow Mines and Lurkers. They're just pretty bad overall. Like, they're a lot of money for what can sometimes be no damage. Yeah, they're essentially a living, breathing... Wait, do they breathe? Whatever. Protoss is like an onion, okay? Nobody knows how it works. How do you counter Phoenixes with Stargate if you can't micro Phoenixes? Is there no other way? There are plenty of other ways. But, like, if your answer to Phoenixes is less Phoenixes with worse micro, that's a bad answer. That's not good. Level up corner. That's a level down response. I know there are a lot of replies to this that I would have included if they were particularly profound. But, 1, timings. Like blink stalkers or quick Archon timings. Another response to Phoenixes, and you're not going to like to hear this is going to be a continued thing with Protoss, is to just take it, okay? So your opponent is over there with like 6 Phoenixes, like killing all your probes. He's probably missing some beats back at home, especially... So 1, if you're Diamond Plus and you can't micro Phoenixes, well, that's your fault. But if you're below Diamond and he's over there microing Phoenixes, you can probably catch up and just essentially lose... It's the cost of doing business. It's the cost of this guy sitting there microing his Phoenixes, pretending he's Roddy, but building no probes at home. But an Immortal Archon Charizard army counters a Phoenix army. But of course, if he just, like, you build Phoenixes, he builds Phoenixes, and you lose all your Phoenixes, you probably lose the game. That's how it works. That's how StarCraft works. I can't solve math for you. Sorry. So, why does everyone... Parrot Sticks, fun name, comes in. Why does everyone say Protoss units are expensive? They are very normally priced, apart from Templar. Maybe there's a link between units that have a lot of armor and people seeing them as pricey, because nearly all Protoss ground has an extra layer before upgrades. Like, perhaps you get used to them surviving normal attacks. To a certain extent, they feel like heavier loss when a spell ability gets them. I don't know what to think about this. Alright, we're gonna go back to math, alright? I know, it's scary.
The numbers don't lie!
They are more expensive. The units are literally more expensive. Their units cost more minerals. I get what you're saying. I get what Parrot Sticks here is trying to say. I think most of us do. He's saying, like, for the cost, they are not exponentially better. Like, a 100 mineral zealot is not twice as good as 2 marines or something. It's not better proportionally. But no, the point is they're literally so expensive. No, you got it. You're right there. That is the point. The point is when you lose it, you've lost more money. So keeping it alive and having it do more for that cost is more relevant. They are relatively similarly priced to the units of the other races, but they are literally a larger investment when you build them. There's nothing else to it. It's literally the amount of money you spend to build a Colossus is more than the amount to build a tank. So, like, when you lose that Colossus, it hurts more. But it also has things that help keep it alive. So, it is, when they say it's expensive, it's because it's literally expensive. Like, the actual number is high for a lot of the units, especially in comparison to Zerg or Protoss. Nope, not in comparison to Protoss, though maybe. To Terran, whose basic units are usually cheaper but less powerful. So, it is that. It's not a metaphor. It's literal. It is, they cost more. Where do you recommend placing your first pylon and gate against random? Honestly, on most maps, I think you place the first pylon like you're playing against Protoss on the top of the ramp. If the map has a ramp on the low ground, like Curious Minds, for example, are there any other maps in the pool? Let me go look at the map pool real quick. Or Blackburn, maybe Berlingrad, but probably not. I think it's a little easier to consider just building a low ground pylon. And, like, I would scout off of pylon, but you can't, and honestly, below Masters, I would not trust any random player. Some filthy random player telling your race. I don't trust him. You shouldn't either. Some of you are those players, and you know. But, yeah. I would say place it like it's PvP. Because worst case scenario, it is. And you have to have some form of a wall against Zerg as well. So you gotta hedge your bets. It doesn't hurt you much against Terran. It doesn't help, but it doesn't hurt you much. And against Zerg and Protoss, you may need that wall, so. I don't have the exact link to that. This is from the Protoss 2. I guess somebody put the build out there, but... And spawningtool.com is something you should check out. If you're looking for the actual numbers and build orders and things you can copy-paste, I know I say that's not really what I'm looking to do, but it's not like I'm saying you should never learn that. I'm just saying it's not required to, like, recite your build order from memory, all the supplies, and it's not multiple choice, like, not that. But if you're interested in stuff like that, spawningtool.com, yes, that's the name, it's great, is your source, and you can find, I should pin that comment or something on the other one. We have JK, an untrustworthy name, if I've ever heard one myself. Onions grow more layers over time. Nice job baiting me into a comment. I don't think I can trust someone named JK to tell me any facts about onions. Alright? That seems like an intentional bait. I don't believe him. Alright, and now we have Adrian. Adrian. Okay. That's me. I'm a new player this year. Protoss. Thank you. All due to your videos. Smiley face. And I've attempted to follow this macro strategy. I'm getting wrecked on ladder by constant early harass. Marine drops. Probes blocking my natural. Links flooding in before I can even attempt to wall off. It has been a disaster. Maybe I'm just placed too high and I need to leave the league. I'm 7-20. So we'll tackle that first half first. 7-20 is pretty good for your first 25 games. 27, actually. Math again. That's actually not bad. I lost about 75 out of my first 100 games, and nobody knew what they were doing because it was like the first season of StarCraft. I just had no idea what I was doing. I was in Silver League. So Silver 1 is the highest of Silver League, but it's where you'll even out, I think, if you're putting any effort in. I guarantee you, if you focus a little more, and you try to figure out, like, is this actually the timing when I needed to build my wall? Like, did I get Warp Gate in time and build units? Did I have, did I have detection, or did I get my expansion? Because a lot of players will get distracted by things like scouting with your probe, or by seeing a Reaper or an Overlord or something, And that happens to the best of us, all right? So, I think you can fully, as a new player, expect to lose. You're going to lose more, and it's going to feel horrible. So look forward to that. You can leave League if you'd like, but I wouldn't be surprised if you placed in a similar spot. Your Silver League is where there's a split of players who will just sit back and play no rush 10 minutes, and then, or 20 minutes more accurately. And then players who have one build. And you're facing, I bet, a lot of those builds right now. A lot of players are scared of Protoss. More like the idea of Protoss than actually what Protoss does at Silver. So they'll try their cheeses. But eventually you'll get better at defending them, but you will lose, and it will be painful, and that's just how it is. Welcome to StarCraft. Fuck you. Second part of the question. Is there any special way to stop sentries from moving too far forward in the blob of the army? I'm finding I use the protection spell. You see, he's definitely moving up eventually. It's called Guardian Shield, but the idea's there. And they get killed early because they stray ahead of my longer ranged units. Well, that is why usually you want to have Zealots and Archons, which are the further part of the build. There is no easy way to keep them from moving forward in front of things like Stalkers and Colossi. I know that's how I start out the builds. They're just shorter range units, so without additional and probably poor priority micro. But that is what the Zealots and Archons are for getting in the way. Doing a lot of damage, but also getting in the way, so the Guardian Shield can work on both sides. So, eventually, this another one is like 27 games is amazing. It's more than almost everyone, especially everyone listening to this. But at the same time, that is the amount of games I played in one day back in Wings of Liberty. And that's when games took longer. So, let's try a second day. I don't mean that to belittle. I'm saying, like, you're just getting started. And these things, you're asking the right question. I want to give all the credit. I think Angry Coach comes through a lot. I'm just a bit of a cynical person, some might argue. Though some might argue I'm incredibly humble. Maybe the most humble person they've ever met. But these are the right questions. They're good questions. The answer is it's going to continue, but you're on the right path and you're asking good questions. So that's already a plus. We have Rubik's. One more essay. Hi, Winter. I don't have a question. Okay? I want to say, after years of watching and getting to understand the new low APM series, maybe get into the game for real. We got testimonials here at the end. I tried low APM challenge, and it raised my MMR by 200 and my self-esteem by negative 500. And it was already rock bottom. Thank you, Winter. Made me get into the game for real. I chose Protoss because I like their design and their mechanics. I'm having surprisingly better results than I would have expected. It's definitely easier to watch than to play, but I'm getting the hang of it. It's absolutely a great game. You're a great teacher, and all the induced stress is worth it. I'm being told by a Zerg who failed in All-In that Protoss is OP. So that's why it's here. Let me read that one more time. All the induced stress is worth it when I'm being told by a Zerg who failed in All-In that Protoss is OP. That one's for you, Adrian. And then Jean-Louis with our final question. A question for the next Protoss video. What is the right amount of probes after the third expansion? So, I think I can translate. I will go ahead and give you all the potential there. So, your second expansion should ideally, I mean, we have the timings mapped out, but should ideally be no more than 25 probes into it. Usually you're getting around 20 early on. Your third expansion, usually you're getting between 35 and 40 probes. And then you use that third expansion usually to go 60 or 70. The actual middle, like the 3 base number is 66. 22 per base. You got 16 on minerals, you got 6 on gas. That's perfect saturation, most optimalist. But, believe it or not, there are things that might kill your probes, might want to take more bases.
Farn Squab is chilling for 8 months.
all of that. So those are
25
all
and
things to consider. So your target, I think, before as you're getting your third is around 50 probes, and that's on your target for your gateways, like 6 to 8 gateways as well. Surprise! Like the money starts coming together once you get all your tech buildings up, and then your target on 3 bases, or as your third is finishing, should be 50 to 60, and then that max number is probably 75 or 80. I think targeting 80 is fine. 75 is the ideal number, but if you target 80 and land at 75, well, there you go. And if you get 85, that's not a bad problem to have. So, with that, some great questions and comments and important info from everybody. Thank you guys for watching. Keep sending in those comments and questions, and maybe you'll be featured here. Maybe not, but maybe. Never say never. Like eventually beating all those cheeses and getting people to complain about Protoss being OP. So that'll conclude our questions for from the last episode. We're gonna be going back, targeting Platinum 1 with a little bit more focus on the right unit composition and hitting a sharp timing as we move towards Diamond. Jimmy, back to the serious Protoss music.
If you won't win,
Now that we're up
what
against
you
the
want?
Overmind. Alright. Twitch chat questions are at the end, and they're for all 3 races as well. And in general, if I see a particularly good or very not good question. Alright, Zerg, I'm gonna get the gateway, and then we're gonna send it across the map. Chrono boost. I was gonna rally out to the gas, but I wasn't pro enough. So now I'm looking for, does he have a hatchery? I'm not going to block his hatch. Maybe we'll start doing that in Diamond, but that's a little bit too much of screwing up my own build in order to hurt his, which can be fine, but...
Your units under attack.
Alright, so we saw he expanded, and he's getting a spawning pool and gas. But those were, of course, after the expansion. Is this a wall off? Why am I so bad at this game?
Who is boss here?
How? It's a bait wall, all right? It's like Roddy building the pylon in the wall. Like, this is a good idea. That it'll bait Zergs into doing a dumb attack. All right, it's completely intentional. Because I can just build batteries behind it. Oh, it is just a mistake. I just built the gateway in the wrong spot. It happens. All right. Jimmy. The map is relevant as well. It's too much. It's too much. Every time on this map, because this map is technically the only map that has a different sized wall as well. It is smaller, which you'd think would be easier. But actually makes it more complicated. Because the geometry is wrong. So he doesn't have a third either, by the way. Oh god, this is wrong too. Oh my god, it's so bad. Ah! I'm just gonna start patrolling. Got a Void Ray on the way. I'm not sending the Adept out right now. I think I'm gonna send one. Get a third gate here. Because it's pretty sus. I'm probably going to sacrifice the Adept. We're gonna get a second Void Ray. Yes, we're not relying on Void Ray builds. But Void Ray, even after the patch, will still be your best early game defense. Let's see. I'm looking at his creep here.
For the glory of Protoss, no mercy to
We see roaches. Okay. So I'm just going to shift right click on the drones here. Ah, he's queen walking. So we're gonna get a robotics facility, more gas, another shield battery. He's doing a 2-base queen walk. So we're gonna get a forge, gonna get more pylons, because he doesn't have a lair, but he is building queens and he's getting a lot of gas, which means he wants to build ravagers with this. So I'm actually going to rush, and it's going to be very fancy, but I'm going to rush disruptors. And then I'm pretty much just going to try to put as much in front of this as possible. Is he going burrow? I guess there's a small chance. Ah, yeah, there you go. I'm gonna use this probe. So, the queen walk, you just gotta know what's coming here. Like, this is also a build. Well, since this build will be severely nerfed by queens no longer being able to transfuse off of creep, I don't feel so bad about using Void Rays, which are also going to be nerfed. This is the exact scenario that is changing with the next patch. By the way. So, the Queen Walk versus Void Ray kind of exchange. Also the Void Ray proxy, but just in general. There's a chance he tries for a Nidus because he's still at home, so I'm building disruptors because queens are so thick that it's pretty easy to hit them. And of course, like, they can't really move out of the way as well. So they got a lot of things working against them. Watch him go for Spire. That would be the crazy, but we need to scout at this point. He has a bunch of spore crawlers. I have no idea. It's pretty crazy. I'm gonna send an adept to patrol the corners. The Patroller Lord Adept. I mean, at this point, I'm just gonna build Immortals and take a third. I'm taking the furthest third, so that way the queens have further to walk. They don't like walking, even though they can transfuse.
It should have happened. Your minerals is ended.
I need to make sure I don't get caught where I don't have shield batteries. That's very important. Shield batteries are most of my defense. Where did my observer go? Oh. I have no idea what he's doing. It's honestly like ah, the queens! Ah! Oh no, retreat! Sorry. I knew it! It just took a while.
Time to make expand and defense.
Well, it took a long while. He's got a lot of Ravagers, but if he breaks down my wall... Fire at the Queens. They can transfuse, but that's a lot of energy gone to start this. I'm going to re-shield the pylon. Fire up another Disruptor into the Queens. And another... into the Ravagers. Another into everyone there. Acceptable losses on those Zealots. Okay, so the big balls build. So he's got another attack. Usually I have my disruptors on a separate hotkey, but there I was just selecting them because the only important thing was the disruptors land. Like, everything else can die as long as the disruptors hit. This is... So like I was saying, we're going to focus on building the right units, even if it is a little more micro-intensive. Here... It's just all about the Ruptors to shut that down. And that is why usually Zerg players will either try to go for a very high economy with the Queen Walk, or they'll do it quick and try to hide it. Because essentially the Disruptors are the dangerous... If you get enough of them, a couple Disruptors against a competent player shouldn't be the end of a Queen Walk, but 4 or 5 is just too many. It's just too many to deal with. They can, they can just hit the whole surface area. They can carpet bomb it. So.
You have exhausted all the minerals in the cluster. No more minerals in the field.
All right. I think we have enough probes. You know how I said 75 to 80? Well, I have 3 bases with 84 probes. When I get scared, I build probes. It's not the worst reflex to have. Okay. Well, at the very least, I'll have some probes here. I think we're actually going to just expand out here. I'm going to have the Templar Archives. Once I have some Archons...
Your units under attack.
Once I have some Archons, it's time to go. We're gonna set this base up.
Upgrade complete.
Camera locations. I actually am gonna start long distance mining. The Zealots are going to do the 2-pronged attack. I'm gonna bring my observers here. And we're gonna go.
You can enjoy new ability.
Charge is done. Should get a warp prism as well. I don't care about those Zealots living. I care about them distracting him at all.
For the glory of Protoss,
So.
no mercy to the enemies.
Throw a disruptor. We just take this base, throw another shot, and another. The idea, you always want to be using disruptors on offense, if possible. And remember, you can select the shot after it fires as well. A lot of players just kind of let it fly. I mean, you don't want to get too crazy. And also, another implication is that Select all army selects the disruptor shot. So you gotta be real careful, my addicts out there. And you know who you are. To not select all army, right click, and then suddenly there are 2 disruptor shots on top of your zealots. Not that any of you have ever done that, I'm sure. But I've seen pro players do that. It's rough. Oh. Let's go fishing. So the easiest way to deal with this is not to fight it, but to warp in. Just put that in the mineral line.
Your units under attack.
He doesn't have a hive, and that's very important to note, by the way. Without a hive, you cannot build the lurker upgrades. We see he has a couple lurkers there.
Should have happened. Heroes descended.
Guardian shield. No, there you go.
You played better.
The warp prism comes back in. I move in the army. Warp prism goes out. Army comes in. And if you have enough production at home, you can keep doing that. Yeah, I don't like disruptors. They look very flash. But the micro did push it over the top on that one. Monsignor Serral the Jubilant, killing 14 roaches, 8 ravagers, a drone, and well, acceptable losses. Obviously. And a changeling. Yeah, that changeling. I did go 5 over.
Good. Now I have your attention.
Wintergame
That is,
also
and that is kind of the sort of build that gatekeeps, especially Protoss. Because it's not, I mean, it is a little APM intensive, but it's mostly rotating between several distinct sorts of armies and abilities. Like using your Immortals and Void Rays, firing Disruptors, if needed, using Sentries. Like, it's not necessarily about the speed of it, but a lot of people get caught on any one of those things and they lock into it. It's like, I'm microing Disruptors, or I'm microing Void Rays, or I'm blinking Stalkers, or whatever it is. And that is, it can work in the short run. It may win you the game with just really good control in one fight, but it won't win you most games, which is what we're focusing on. Diamond. We're scratching the Twilight Zone. That was a pun. Because once we get further up the ladder, that's when we start opening Twilight against Protoss. And yes, potentially for Blink. I don't know if we need to. I don't think Blink is required until actually higher Diamond. Probably not until Diamond will we do that. But Blink openers, like, I've avoided Twilight at all because Twilight is the largest bait of any building for Protoss. The Twilight opens up a whole mess of options, and that also was literal. Just a whole mess of things that will distract you and probably end up cost inefficient at best. That's why the Robo is the focus. The Robo is the boring, stable tech that you go home to when you know you are not succeeding with Stargate, and you're getting too crazy with Twilight. Sir. Uh-huh. So we gotta check the bottom of the ramp here. There it is. I'm actually gonna stop this before it starts. I'm bringing enough probes to kill the cannons and to target the probe.
For the glory of Protoss, no mercy to the enemy.
We'll bring the Zealot to help with this as well.
Your unit under attack.
We're not going Twilight this game. We're going to get a Stargate. There's another probe out there for some reason. I'm gonna get an Adept. Stalkers are better against cannons, but an Adept can go by his cannons. So that is the focus there. I'm going to block his expansion. Start a Stargate. If he wants to build cannons to unblock his expo, he can be my guest. Because he doesn't have any units, and even if he builds a Zealot is not very good. So, it looks like he will build cannons to unblock his base. Just nice of him. Which means my expansion will be quicker, and he'll also be spending time building more cannons. I suspect DTs. I suspect he hasn't finished his cyber core yet. Is what I suspect. Because when you cannon rush both bases, then you have trouble. There's the cyber core halfway done.
Stop enemy attack.
I am going to micro this Adept because it could partially win the game. Alright, and now I'm gonna build an Oracle, actually. I'm going to check the corner bases, because he may have just expanded to one of them. I just shift-clicked the Zealot through all the corner bases. I've started a Robo back at home, going to 3 gateways. Gonna build a Void Ray as well after the Oracle. I'm actually gonna use the... Yep, there it
For the glory
is.
of Protoss, no mercy to the enemy.
He's building more cannons. I'm gonna chrono boost probes here. Because this is very true. A lot of people don't know this. Cannons are not probes. One observer. Get some pylons. And then hold position in the mineral line. The Oracle has 8 kills here. I'm just gonna keep it. He's building Void Race. Alright, so I can build more Void Race. That's the strat. I know, it sounds crazy, but I think mathematically it's pretty sound. So his Void Ray is probably coming over to deal with this. I can have the Zealot patrol. I'm gonna send the Oracle back into the main. We're gonna take a 3rd base here.
Time to show your opponent who is boss here.
Does he have his natural? Is that what he did? Where did all the probes go? Alright. We'll get a shield battery in the main, but he only had one gas geyser, so there's only so many bases on the map, right? That's kind of the limiting factor, at the very least. I'm just gonna get this observer where the Void Rays could sneak out to. Like, if he doesn't have another Nexus, like he's not in a corner like with a town center mining wood. I don't think one mines wood either. Like, that's just not how it works. Yep, +1. I'll go to the watchtower. Getting a cannon battery in every base.
It should have happened.
Okay.
Your minerals deserved it.
You know what counters one Void Ray? Did you say 4 Void Rays? Math again. Keeps cropping up. I know, like, it's crazy how important math is.
Your unit under attack.
You're gonna try to run away. Got vision. Okay, all right. This last Void Ray, like, no more, no more. It's borderline like letting him try to sneak something on me now. It's not borderline. It's just let's get this game over with. I have like twice as many Void Rays, well, even more than that actually.
Mineral field exhausted. Time to make expand and defensive. Your unit under attack.
Does he have a Stargate right there? He does. Right? Wait, no, he just had the Void. So yeah, that's all he had. Was the that wasn't even really like a cannon rush. He was going for like a cannon contain. I'm not playing random. Like, I don't know. I mean, well, looks like he's succeeded even further at the low APM challenge. Isn't that the last guy that tried to cannon rush you? No. A lot of people are fooled that when the victory screen says something and it has a name on it, it's not actually the person who lost. It's the person who won. But it's easily confused. I know, right? Yeah. I recognize the Z-Funk. I mean, is there? I think this was Mr. Cannon's. No, it was just a completely different player. Alright, math again. If you look at the numbers and the letters, they were different. Very key. Letters are just like numbers, but in different shapes. If you think about it.
The strongest will win.
Aren't all things shapes?
New subscriber detected.
Shorn_Naya is chilling.
Thank
for
you,
16
Shorn NA.
months.
I'm a philosopher. I'm a part-time StarCraft player, full-time philosopher. Buy my ebook. Subscribe today. Like Shorn NA. Subscribers get an extra premium exclusive deal. Alright. They get all of it before everyone else. And by that I mean they get to know that there is no ebook. Ebooks are all just made up by birds. Except all birds are drones. So the AIs have already taken over is what I'm trying to say. Little did you know. Nope, we're not pro gaming here. Sorry, I went into my like I said, even for me, even as someone who's played hours of StarCraft most days in the last 12 years, there's no getting around losing focus. So the way I would be, well, Slow Joe brings us back, but the way I used to practice was I'd play like probably around 3 hours, and then spend an hour just watching some streams. Actually watching my replays was kind of rare because I was perfect as a Diamond Leaguer and I didn't need any help, and it was just the imbalance that was keeping me down. But otherwise, and then you come back, you play another 3-4 hours. So that means like 10-15 games, and then take a break, 10-15 games, and then, wow, look at that, it's 5 a.m. It's time for GSL in 240p. And then they upgraded to 360, and oh my god, you could even tell what number the supply was, as opposed to just the number of digits. How crazy. Anyway, so it's been a while since then. And then you sleep through class.
For the glory of Protoss.
What is that? What are those? Didn't he just lose? Oh, that was cute. I'm gonna build a shield battery in each mineral line now. Honestly, if the grenade landed, I think he wins. But I don't know what that was. Some players have been making like a delayed Reaper, because we're facing Diamond now. So we're in the pretending, especially with Terrans, we're in the pretend you're a pro gamer zone. Where you try to do like a 7k MMR build with just over half, and it doesn't go great, and then you blame Protoss. That's not that I'm stereotyping. But, yeah. I think... Or it was a misclick. Like... We will see. Can I still get units out of there? Yes, Immortals should be able to shuffle out. I almost walled off my robo. 40 probes. So this is the Widowmine drop timing, by the way. I'm gonna get a pylon near where I want to build a third. So 430-ish. He did do that weird Reaper thing, but if he was going to Widowmine drop. No, it looks like a 2-1-1. A little bit of a fancy flavor, but my second observer is gonna go scout for drops. I'm actually going to build that third. He's obviously looking for the obs here. I can't make him happy. I usually wouldn't spend that much time, but I imagined how salty he would be, and it made me very happy. So, like, I had to do it. We're just gonna put this pretty far out now, because I don't actually want it getting sniped. That would be very bad. Okay, the Colossi got a tiptoe pretty far, but we're gonna siege that up, so it just barely has vision. while also being unlikely to be scanned at least that easily. 50 probes. Alright, gateway, gateway, gateway. I have another Colossus on the way, right? Yep. I'm actually going to keep those stalkers in the main. Get a pylon and just patrol a probe out there. Nope, we're going to move the stalkers out here. Because Senior Sweatlord over here sneaking out those medevacs. Well, I messed up. I need to recall the stalkers now. He even scanned before. He scanned the recall, so he knows there's an observer, because he seems like he has a brain. Or he thinks it's map hacks. Either way. I'm going to keep some of the stalkers in the main, just to zone out. The rest of the army will be between... So the positioning is very important, especially now that, oh my god. You know, just a scouting Colossus. It's a classic strat. Did I get extended thermal lance? I did. Get it started. Yeah, he's really putting the effort in on trying to get those drops to work. He's got a double drop headed towards the main. He got a little too fancy for his own good here. I'm gonna shift click a single Colossus back. Charge. I'm not even worrying about my probes because we're playing Drop Hunter here. Because it's one of those Terrans. There's a surprising amount. But this is kind of the... I'm dropping because it feels like I'm doing something as opposed to... Because if I was moving out or attacking, or if he was doing like a two-prong, but he's just dropping. Like, he's just getting out there. So. Let's see, he has 1-1 done, so he has the upgrades. I'm getting another base. Now I can manage my economy for a little bit, and by that I mean I have too many probes. Chrono, 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 and another Robo. Get those spotter pylons. Once again, 100 minerals is a bargain for the, especially since I need my Robo time a lot here. We saw him moving up the middle. He's got some Vikings. I am going to be getting Storm. I don't have any shield batteries at this base, which is potential trouble. We're going to get some more stalkers for the Vikings. Start the armor. Continue to chrono boost Storm. Storm is only halfway done. I'm adding some Immortals in. So I think he's going to try to outmaneuver me. Because you could tell. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to send these Zealots. We're just going to right-click in his third mineral line. And if they just die, all horribly, That's fine. Alright. The best thing they can do is die.
Your research is complete. You can enjoy new abilities. Your units under attack.
Oh, it's a planetary fortress he's got there. Ooh. So this is why we don't rely on the Colossi as much. It's because enough Vikings will deal with it. Then that's when we add in the storms. Now, that did well enough that we can now just move past. I'm building Immortals as well as a more stable option. These are for Archons, these Templar.
Upgrade complete.
One more for Archons. We'll see if he has Ghosts, but a lot of Terrans. And this is what we focus on in the Terran Low APM challenge. Having that one extra unit. It gets difficult when the Protoss starts adding in 2 flavors, right? That's when you either got to commit very hard to things like Liberators, or try to manage all your counter flavors. Like having Ghosts and Vikings, which is where things can... Obviously, they're controlling Vikings and controlling the army. That was a lot to ask, so... Get the upgrades. And I get Observer and Warp Prism speed upgrades as well. I don't see any Ghosts. He has 1-1. So, and I have 2-2 already done. So that means I'm in a good spot. He doesn't have a 4th, I know, because I'm sitting there. I actually didn't realize that until this moment, though. So we have 3 in gas. And bring these Immortals out. Those Templar are on the wrong side. More gas. The Stargate. I find myself not finding spots for gateways in the later game a lot. I don't know. It's always been a problem. These guys will guard the 4th. I'll hit the 4th with everything else. That Observer, you remember that Observer? Oh.
Time to show your opponent who is boss here.
Focusing on the storms.
Mineral field exhausted. Time to make expand and defend. It should have happened. Your minerals is ended.
Can I go further? He still has some tanks, but I have Immortals. He's got the Ghosts, but
Enemy drops nuke. No more minerals.
he's nuking.
Research is ready. Time to show our strength. No more gas in the Western Geyser, my friend.
I could have just walked away. I didn't. It's to give him the moment of feeling like the nuke might land, and then have it ripped away is the key.
Mineral field exhausted. Time to mate, expand, and defense.
Where are my observers? I have observer speed somewhere. I guess he could have some of the corner bases or the center as well.
An assimilator has run dry. Hard times have.
Oh, I have our shield upgrades now, but he still has that planetary, is the issue. I mean, at some point, he runs out of money. That point is pretty soon, I think. He's fighting to the end. LOL. How easy. There it is. So, as soon as we saw the two medevacs, essentially the Byun cosplays, the key is to wait them out. Never overcommit. They will. There's no way they can juggle all that. Even Byun can't juggle all that. He loses all the time doing that kind of strat. Like the medevacs in 4 different places and then losing half of it and dying to a death ball. So, the key is map vision and patience. Because until you have the kind of death ball, you can fight it, but why fight it if you let him fight himself? So, if a ghost gets an EMP off on your Storm Templar, is it better to morph them into Archons? Almost certainly. Unless they have like full energy. Because EMP only does 100 energy damage. So if they actually have, like, full energy... No! I thought, well, there was a lot going on. I probably could have shaved off some, but we still went over. Technically, he's not platinum, but that's not the point here. I am pushing it with the multiple control groups and, full macro. It is the macro. It is the building probes and pylons. We have now potentially just one last game to diamond. So, before we've graduated from the metal leagues to the salt fields. So, overall, it's been a relatively comfortable journey. I hope I've helped you. Like, the lesson plan technically ends at Diamond. As, like, we've been going over build orders across the board, what matchup-specific builds look like, when to add production and tech, late-game army control, all of that. And hopefully, and it's not like we're going to stop doing these things, but I believe, from my experience and from watching yours, that Diamond and Masters is 90%, 95% doing all those things faster and more efficiently. So, it is not about necessarily... At that point, it is working smarter and harder. Once we get to Diamond, it is... especially moving up to the higher levels of it. We got a Terran player. Is a lot more about hitting those timings sharply rather than at all. At all will get you there, as we've seen. But it becomes more and more relevant how quickly and how effectively. So that is why the lesson plan kind of ends generally at Platinum, because we're now no longer can generalize as much.
For the glory of Protoss, no mercy to the enemies.
I'm just gonna right-click his SCV. He scouted very early, which I'm not random again. Like, I keep playing these players and it feels like they think I'm random or something, but maybe it's just they're scared. Okay, so that's 2 barracks. I mean, I'm just gonna get the cyber core before expanding. I'm not gonna build any more probes right now. Okay. So is it for Reapers or Marines? Honestly, I'm gonna sacrifice the probe to figure it out. If a Marine, well, we'll see if he micros. So it's a Marine. Reapers require potentially a shield battery in the main. No Reaper equals shield battery at the natural. I mean, maybe both, but we start with the shield battery at the natural. Something that can also help the probes later on. Because shield batteries don't need to be in front. They don't shoot back. They just support your other units. I'm going to try the absolute lowest possible APM this game. Our pre-diamond game. Really just throw back, try for 60 is the plan. Which means I will just bank money. I will only warp in as many units exactly as I think I need. Which is not the best way to play. Definitely. Ideally, you warp in as many as possible. But the point here is to show that you can get by without that. It's just not as simple. Alright, so I have a robo coming up. Just a bunch of Marines there. Fortunately, I do just have to fight.
Your resort is complete. You can enjoy new ability.
He just built a bunch of Marines. Who would have thought? Well, immediately. Micro God. Oh. One shield battery was not enough. But now we should have the units, and a Robo Bay is on the way, and an Observer as well. It was a well-placed battery. I'm going to cut probes a little to get a Colossus. That is not a build with a... So what I think happened is he had more barracks than just 2. That may have just been 2. But I don't think it's unlikely he had more as well. Because I only saw the 2, right? Oh, there you go. So Wally has... Is that a third command center? No. This is another game of patience. I could probably move out. No. Well, if he's gonna show me his back.
Your unit under attack.
Micro. Colossus isn't very good against these anyways. We have the vision now on both sides. Chrono.
Research is ready.
Where's that second observer I built? Oh, I put it at the back there. Drop defense and more gates. And another robo. Queuing up the probes. Once I'm done with those, I should be done with probes. This probe has a lot to do.
Field exhausted. Time to make expand and defense. You have exhausted all the
He's building a third command center, you can see on the minimap. Thermal Lance is already done. It was a priority when I saw, especially, it was a pre... So Thermal Lance is a great upgrade, but my priority is getting more Colossi against someone who has Medivacs early,
Who is boss here?
whereas against the one base... Actually, no, that's backwards. Thermal Lance is a priority if they do have Medivacs. I'm actually concentrating extra hard to minimize. Will he just drop? We're finding another dropper lord.
Show our strength.
Because more Colossi, like, they're not going to close the distance if you have too many.
New skill.
Here we are. Well, map vision plus let them get themselves killed. That is the key. A lot of Terran players will overstep and overdrop. Also, I was hyping up Diamond. I never said I was good at math, despite how much we've talked about math in this episode. We've gone over the equations. Nobody can calculate how I fucked that one up, though. We're not quite there yet. Yeah, even though the beginning was a little bit of once again, I don't know how many times I have to stress it. The reason a lot of people feel like, for me, and for you, my low APM friend, the high APM comes from building workers, building pylons, building gateways, and building units. It doesn't come from controlling them. Just think of the sheer amount. If you are building 80 probes in, let's say 8 minutes. 10 minutes. Let's make it simple. 80 probes in 10 minutes. That's already 80 actions, 8 a minute. But then you count how many times you select the Nexus to do that, which is probably another couple times a minute. So at least 10 actions a minute are just building probes. And that's like a minimum. And then you slap on another 5 or 6 for pylons and gates. And then you add building units, you're already 20, 30 actions in. And that's before you've even moved any of those units. So, overall, yeah, there were some people like, Winter, that says Platinum too, and you're hyping up Diamond. But I've been called out too many times to point this out too strenuously rather. So, that does end up, honestly, I think that was a good example. Thank you to TomTom for showing us how even if you're spending a lot of effort, like, it is the macro that does push it up. And I know, I just, like a disclaimer on the end, I know that sometimes I kind of, and that's why we're cutting it off here. By the way, that is the end of the games for this episode. Like and subscribe. We're in the comments portion. You can tune out and go to the next one now. Unless there is no next one, then you can go watch the other races or leave a question or something. But just FYI, we're good. You're good. Only words from here, no actions per minute. So, but it's just, I actually have to concentrate to slow it down. Like, this is the humble brag, but after 50,000 games, to not warp in quickly and not build pylons quickly is more effort than to do so. That is not supposed to be an intimidating thing. The point is, I understand, and I try to make everything I try to do, I know is going to be a little quicker than your average of this league, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't win. But it does get there, and that's not, like, it's not going to be as smooth or easy in your first few hundred games, but eventually at some point you just get used to shift-clicking your pylons down, or setting up a new nexus, or warping in quickly with the shift or rapid-fire keys. Like, it takes some time. Like, I was recently playing yesterday when we're recording. We're taping this, as one does. Yesterday, we were doing the Scion alternate universe StarCraft mod, the one with the races that are very different, but also very much the same. And just having slightly different units with slightly different hotkeys breaks my brain. So it helped me realize how much my hands are doing without me realizing it. Which sounds bad, but it happens. So it's not supposed to be an intimidation. I don't think it takes that long, especially if you're focusing on one race, to get the basics down. Like, you might not be used to controlling two different parts of your army, but you can get into the rhythm of, I'm scouting and building scouts and probes, scouts and drones, scouts and SCVs. Not actually scouts. This isn't AoE 4 or like the former SC2 Pro retirement fund. But getting in the habit of, whenever you're looking at another screen, at least you can build probes, right? Like, that kind of stuff just comes without even thinking about it. Eventually. So. But I'm just going to, once again, recap our whole, now that we're at the end of Platinum. One rank to go. I thought we were at, yeah. Well, the basic expand. Getting that expansion on 20 or so supply, 20 or 21. Wow. With probes and pylons, that's always the focus. Probes and pylons. That is what it boils down to. Everything is probes and pylons, and especially where you put your pylons. 50 workers by 7 minutes, 50 probes. And then at 50 probes, getting up to 6 gateways. Another important part, as in the Silver League, we went over, okay, Zerg should have 1 hatchery at least by around a minute. If they don't have it by a minute and a half, they might be doing something cheesy. Same with Terrans getting their gas or not getting their gas, or Protoss with their gateways and or forges. If you just scout after you build your first gateway, you should be able to get all the information to at least respond to some particular cheeses, because it literally, like, it takes that long for them to come together. So it does. You might fuck it up. The cannons might start, and you might right-click on the pylon instead of the cannons, which is occasionally the strat, but cannons actually have less HP, and usually they're not done building, so... But as we saw, the cannon rush defense. And then the most important thing from the basic low-level build is adding production and tech. 1 is getting tech right after that Cybercore finishes, as soon as possible, whether it's a Stargate or a Robo. Probably not a Twilight, but occasionally a Twilight. Mostly Stargate or Robo. That is the biggest mistake I see consistently from Protoss, an Angry Coach, and just against them here. And the one thing I want to stress. And then production, which is 90% of the time gateways, which means getting 3 gates by the time Warp Gate finishes usually, and then around 50 probes, 6 to 8 gateways, whatever you got money for, really. And then getting that 3rd base, at least against Zerg and against Terran by the 5-minute mark, against Protoss probably 6. So, and then basic micro and ability use. Guardian Shield, it's amazing, but ideally you do have to put things in front of it, otherwise the sentries will just die. Like, we graduated from Stalker Colossi, went to counter. They're building 3 racks instead of 2. Do I need to change my whole build? No. They're building 2 starports and a fusion core instead of barracks. Okay, maybe we gotta switch it up there. There are cannons in my base versus there are no cannons in my base. That's another time. Or a Zerg player is going for mutas or rushing lurkers. Maybe we need to either go for more air or focus on the ground more. But when it's just slightly different versions of a basic ground army, whether it's Marine Marauder Medevac with some tanks, mines, even a couple Liberators, not enough to change it up. Stalkers, Archons, Immortals, even a couple Void Rays, not enough to change it up. And then Roaches, Hydras, even a few Lurkers, not enough to change it up. And a lot of players will worry too much about facing their opponent without focusing on themselves. So, and then finally, tech and attack decision making. The general timing is I'm maxed out. That's still the basic time. I'm maxed out. I got the army. We're good to go. It's all done. But sometimes, like when they're taking a 4th base or they attacked you and failed, sometimes you should be attacking, focusing on main army and then a kicker, like the 1-2. Whether it's charge lots or prism, occasionally a Stargate unit or 2, but usually just a run-by of some sort. And then late game army and control. And what that means is just building the right army so that way you can A-click and cast Storm. As we saw. Essentially, late game army and control boils down to I managed to get all my army headed the right direction and I landed a couple storms. Like, it's not as complicated as it sounds. And occasionally, as we saw in that one game, disruptors. But disruptors are a specific choice, usually against Zerg with their queen walks and stuff like that. They can be used against Terran and Protoss, but I just generally don't recommend it because they can hurt you as much as they hurt your opponent, even if you don't shoot yourself in the face. So, like, unless you're planning and willing to Dick Cheney it a bit, like, I recommend just really the disruptors of the queen walk counter, at least up through diamond. And then your advanced benchmarks are getting your gases at your natural instead of like when you remember it, it's around 40 probes. Getting your third around 45 to 50 probes. Really nailing down those gateway timings. Like, I'm assuming you're getting all your probes, and as you get your third, in most scenarios, adding on a Forge and a Twilight to kind of fill out your build. Because usually what happens is you go Stargate, Robo, and then Twilight Forge. So you put it all together. Or, if you're just going Robo, you can go Robo, Twilight Forge. And the Twilight for charge, and the Forge for upgrades, just in general. It sounds complicated. It's really relatively simple. Or, to quote the Terran from a couple games ago, too easy. So, there you go. There's your... I mean, we're not quite out of Platinum yet, but we've got it all covered, and hopefully you found it productive. And now that I've spent all this time talking directly, Twitch chat, this is your warning. I'm going to wrap up this because I know people want to get their questions in, but I don't see any questions that are very helpful at the moment. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Perfect segue. I don't know why it's not showing up. Oh, there we go. All right. D2. I opened Stargate, but I can't micro my Phoenixes to counter Mutas. Any help? Ideally, well, if they have like 15 Mutas and you have one Phoenix, there's no amount of micro that's really going to save you. So, if you don't get attacked and you're comfortably on 3 base, you need to either scout for Mutas or have multiple Stargates. And if you can't micro Phoenixes against Mutas because you can't, and you like Phoenixes hard counter Mutas. If you can't manage that, either you need to come up with an all-in timing or you need to practice it. I don't know. Go to the unit tester, the LOTV online unit tester, and run away from Mutas for a while. You can just press the attack button, they'll attack you, and you can just run away. But, like, it is actually the simplest micro in the game. It's like MOBA micro. Just right-click away, except you attack while doing it. So, it is not very complicated. Most of Phoenix micro comes down to scouting in time, so that way you don't have to micro 2 against, like, 10. But if you have even 1/3 the muta count, you should mostly just crush them. I mean, if they have corruptors, of course, it gets a little harder. But at some point, Archons just will win the game on their own, so. Is it possible to designate units that are not selected by F2? Yes, they're called workers. Otherwise, no. One of the things I would really love from Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition is Select All Army on Screen button. That is something I would love in SC2. But otherwise, no. There is no easy way. Like, when you hit the Select Army hotkey, it selects all the army. Of course, you can Control-click to select a specific part. Thank you, J6, for 91 months.
J6 by 16 is chilling for 91 months.
You can Control-click certain types of units, especially Spellcasters, and put them on their own hotkey from the Select All Army key. But there is no, like, this is my preference. Just something to note is queens are not counted as army, except in the army value tab. So they're not selected by Select Army because that would create other issues. They're going to be even less of an army after the patch, so. When and why should I stop making probes at 1 and or 2 bases? 25 probes per base. If you get 4 bases, right off the 25 probes per fresh mining base. Like if you got 3 bases mining, that's 75 probes. If you got 4 bases mining, yeah, you can go towards 100, but like with a max of like 80. All right, like sometimes you go over, but there shouldn't. I think 98% of Protoss below Diamond should not have any worries about whether they're building too many probes. The answer is, you're not. You're not. It's not happening. You don't have that problem. You have others, like either not spending your money because you're not building enough gateways, Not expanding in time, but the problem is not that you're building too many probes. Is Mothership ever worth it? Mothership isn't bad if you're going mass carrier. Like, as long as your build isn't Mothership, Mothership is not a bad addition to the Skytoss army. Just makes it that much harder. Time Warp is a pretty good ability, but it's mostly just requiring detection. Tips for control group discipline? Besides just playing ladder and not caring about losing, maybe there are a few custom games where you can actually get a little better about it. Besides like playing arcades that are like BGH and stuff, any lower pressure situation that'll get you in the habit of it. Mana Battle, though Mana Battle might not be helpful because you can only build one unit, so that doesn't really help in that scenario. It's like BGH. Even like Zerg Wars, where you have a couple different types of units, and it really screws you up if you select all army. Like, just any lower pressure scenario. A lot of players will get desperate for the game in front of them, and then hurt themselves in trying to win the ones after it. So. I once built 200 probes against a Bronze Terran and pulled my boys to kill my opponent. 2 tanks ruined me. Why are tanks so OP? That's a good point. You've got a great point there. Probes, I think, are boys. But they are the ones that nobody wanted on their team playing dodgeball. My daughter likes building a mothership? Well, smart daughter. Cost for cost, the mothership is the most effective unit in the game. It's just a very expensive cost. No other unit can cloak all the units without having cloak built in itself. Why don't I see Microbial Shroud used very often? Because ground units suck against air units. Specifically Skytoss, but also like Hydras versus Liberators. Taking 50% less damage doesn't stop you from dying to like Storm or Widowmines or like tanks as well. So it generally, like, it'll be used, but it is not like the option is more Corruptor, Viper, Spore. It's not fun for Zerg, but like Microbial Shroud is just kind of a storm me here button. And Hydras are incredibly fragile. Does Microbial Shroud help Spore colonies? I don't know about that one, but it helps Spore crawlers. Everything in the area takes less damage, so that is actually kind of a niche use as well. Do you have a playlist for a complete noob beginner SC2 tutorial? I have a new player's guide to SC2, but this is kind of my new player's guide. I don't teach you what every unit does. I think there's actually a pretty decent training setup, whether it is the actual training missions or a little bit of co-op or campaign. Like, I'm not going to teach you what a control group is. I'll teach you how to use it and better hotkeys for them. I'm not going to teach you what a Marine does, but I'll teach you when to build it and when not to. I'll help you with a build order, but I won't write it down for you, so that way you never learn anything but rote memory. I don't have anything that's like, literally, this is my first time playing RTS, and this is what every unit does. And you know what? Maybe I should. But I would find making that intensely boring. So I don't have that. Because I'm of the philosophy, teach a man a build, and he'll get to platinum. But teach a man to build, and they might be a salty diamond player at least. So that's why we're here. Or woman. Or probe. I don't discriminate except against Diamond Terrans. When should you start building planetaries over orbitals? Usually your 4th. You're third sometimes, but that can actually be more of a liability. Can I just pay you to make my account diamond? You cannot. That would defeat all of the purposes and also be sad. But also how much? 1,000 Bitcoin. Yeah, I think the best way to start is to do the training missions and then play a little against the AI, co-op. If you're willing to brave it, play ladder, but understand you're going to get stopped. So, yeah, I think there are a lot of ways to kind of ease into it. They Legacy of the Void, the intent of the game and how it works, like all the modes and stuff, are to make it easier to get into StarCraft. It's still not easy. Like there's still nothing, and I say this in every episode, but you start with the same amount of probes as Zest. Well, he's got one across the map, but you start with the same exact amount of drones as Serral, and the same amount of SCVs as Maru, and they mine the same amount, and they build at the same speed. There is no gear you can buy, no buffs you can wear, no items you can use, and no reward for winning. You might be like, well, I get my ladder points up. Okay, I guess the reward for winning starts when you're competing with Serral in tournament. But there is no participation award besides a few kind of shitty portraits. It's very likely if you take a break, you're going to come back and lose. And even if you're at the same MMR as before and you feel like you haven't improved, you may have actually gone up in percentile. But because of the convoluted-ass rank system, which is an amalgamation of a decade of kind of indirect and ambiguous systems instead of a focused, like, coherent method, because at some point we just gave up on making it work. So it's just mishmash of ladder points, rank, and the only number that matters is your matchmaking rating. It goes up when you win, goes down when you lose. How long the game is doesn't matter. Only your opponent relative to you. And since, because of MMR deflation in some seasons, it literally gets harder to get the same MMR. You may come back, drop 100 MMR, and be a relatively better player. So all you have is the satisfaction of improving, which is where SC2 replay stats, the semi-official, well, effectively the sponsor of the LOW APM challenge, and by that I mean it is the best tool. I will, before we wrap this up, I will show you SC2 replay. You want achievements? You want quests and gear and all that? I've been playing too much Destiny 2. You wanted just a participation award? Well, one, you have co-op, and co-op's pretty good for that. Co-op actually has, like, unlimited levels, but also SC2 replay stats with the training center, and I am now linking it on the description, so you should be able to see it. But you can see via the training center on SC2 replay stats specific things to improve on. And then when you do improve on it, one, you'll probably move up in MMR, and two, at least, I'm going to give you a couple. Here are a couple that I think are the largest things that people miss, especially platinum to diamond, which is where we are now. Let's take a look at what the training center shows us. Building enough production facilities. You know what? Those are the two big ones. Here are your two. One, workers produced. Do better than the next league. It'll compare you to literally tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, especially for diamond. There were like 300,000 replays for each race, give or take. It will compare you to the average player of the next league up. And compare, like, some games, obviously, if you get cheesed, but the it takes into account the entire ladder. Hundreds of thousands of games. So, yeah, one game you get cheesed, but overall, the average factors that in. So, I produced one more worker. That's your first one. Workers produced. There you go. Do better at all stages, 4 to 8, and then 8 minutes. This stage right here, by the way. You know what? I'm going to get specific. between 4 and 8 minutes, the mid game, very roughly, outproduce the Diamond League, or whatever your league is. It gets lower as you go down, very consistently. So I made 27. Your average is 10 less. Your average of hundreds of thousands of games, 10 less. And it's not, it's not like there was a no rush game either. So the second one, well, one, it shows you things like the production facilities. Let's see. Total production buildings. That one. Okay? At both the mid and the late game, I want you to be better on that, Protoss. For Zerg, I would go with average unspent. And then with Terran, also production buildings. That's your goal. More workers produced in the 4 to 8 minute mark. And more production or less unspent. That's it. You improve on that, you win. Achievement unlocked. Triumph achieved. Quest confirmed and accepted. And you at least get, that's your participation award. So that is your way to win. Yes, you may lose the game, but focus on that. So, with that said, I hope you enjoyed the Low APM Challenge Protoss Part 3. I think I thought today was quite educational. I'm pretty happy with it, which is good, I guess. Make sure to like, subscribe if you made it this far. Ring the bell. I hope I made your day and your games a little bit better. Thank you for watching. Good luck, have fun. I'll see you next time. Stay chill.